Chapter 2477. Elder T was panting heavily as his face turned pale. "That's right, young lady, leave on your own. You will definitely be able to leave the Miao tribe. Let's leave together." Yi Qing Luo interrupted their persuasion without hesitation. "Don't you believe in my ability? I know you're very powerful. But no matter how powerful you are alone, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Elder T's face was filled with sweat from nervousness and running. His moist eyes were filled with emotion. "Little girl, it's enough that you've done so much for us 2 old fellows who don't even know each other. We know that you have a kind heart, but we shouldn't have harmed you just to survive. From the moment you chose to believe me in the Bu family village, we are no longer strangers." Yi Qing Luo lowered her voice and said gently, "In the Bu family village you believed me once. Believe me again today, I will definitely bring you away. He is still waiting for you." Grandma Bu's voice choked as she called out this name. Tears rolled down from her eyes. "We are ordinary people, following you will only implicate you." Elder T hugged his old wife tightly. "Me and this old wife have lived for more than half a year. Even if we die here, it doesn't matter. Before I die, I'm already satisfied that I can wait for this old wife. I won't leave you alone. If you don't want to implicate me, then listen to me." Yi Qing Luo held onto each of them and used her own strength to support the 2 old men. "Go." If it was somewhere else, Yi Qing Luo would definitely let Shiju out and carry the 2 old men away. But in the Miao village cave, it was strange and eerie. That pair of jade eyes, the big bloody mouth, the roar of a wild beast. All of these were deeply imprinted in Yi Qing Luo's mind. She couldn't summon teas and was worried that Shiju would be affected by that pair of jade eyes. Especially, summoning Shiju would expose their whereabouts. Yi Qing Luo could only use her own strength to support the 2 old men as they left. Not even a few steps away. Yi Qing Luo's ears twitched. Following that, her eyes congealed slightly. Someone was approaching. Did Yu Ji discover that she had made use of steel to create the illusion of their corpses? Then used the blink movement secret art to escape the dungeon? She purposely poisoned her robe. Once Yu Ji got close, the fragrance from the robe would seep into his skin. Yu Ji will definitely be poisoned. It was impossible for him to catch up to them so quickly. However, the aura behind him was getting closer and closer. Yi Qing Luo didn't have any other choice as her gaze swiftly surveyed the surroundings and directly headed towards the nearest corner in a flash. She brought the 2 elders of the Bu family and hid in a dark corner. The sound of a group of orderly footsteps could be heard. Yi Qing Luo sneaked a glance from the corner of her eyes. Sure enough, it was someone dressed as a Miao guard. It seemed that her escape with the Bu family's 2 elders had been discovered. Yu Ji didn't chase after them himself. This meant that he was indeed poisoned. These people must have been sent by Miao Yixiong to find Miao Rongrong's antidote. If Miao Yixiong was searching for her, she still had the confidence to win. He was sure that Yu Ji was poisoned. He couldn't do anything to her for the time being. Yi Qing Luo's heart relaxed a little. "Gotcha." Suddenly there was a pulling force behind her. Granny Bu softly exclaimed, "Old man." Chapter 2478. Behind Yi Qing Luo was originally a wall. Even if he fell, he would only fall to the ground. But Yi Qing Luo only felt that her body was empty. Then his body began to fall rapidly. Yi Qing Luo's reaction was swift as she grabbed Grandma Bu's hand tightly. Granny Bu held Elder T's hand tightly. The 3 of them descended at an extremely fast speed. Yi Qing Luo was adjusting her breathing and releasing her profound energy while sensing the surrounding atmosphere, making preparations to descend anytime. The more he fell, the more Yi Qing Luo thought about it, the more astonished she became. This hole was at least 1,000 meters wide. How could there be such a deep cave under the Hmong stockade village? They continued to fall for a while. Yi Qing Luo was keenly aware of the changes in the airflow. She immediately released her profound energy to slow down the speed of their descent. Then he summoned Shiju. Shiju's massive body caught the 3 of them firmly. Very soon Shiju landed on the ground. It was pitch black all around. The 2 elders of the Bu family simply couldn't see what was underneath. They were still in a state of shock, their bodies trembling as they constantly groped for the things beneath them. He only felt a ball of soft fur. "Everything's fine now." Yi Qing Luo gently held the 2 elderly's hands and comforted them softly. The darkness did not hinder her at all. Yi Qing Luo could see her surroundings clearly. This was an oval-shaped cave. There was nothing inside and it was completely empty. She jumped down from Shiju's body and took out a luminous pearl. The cave was not spacious. A luminous pearl was enough to illuminate the surroundings. When the light returned to their eyes, When the Tubu family elders saw the thing they were sitting on, it was a huge black leopard and they almost fainted from fright. Luckily Elder T's reaction was fast. Seeing Shiju's huge head rubbing against Yi Qing Luo's arm bit by bit, he heaved a sigh of relief and pulled the old woman into his arms to pacify her. "Old woman is all right, this is a pet raised by a young lady, it's all right, it's all right." The relationship between an old couple was as beautiful as their first love. "Just rest on Shiju's back for a while. She's a battle-type war pet and can protect you, don't be afraid." Yi Qing Luo patted Shiju's head gently and immediately walked away. Shiju took small steps as it followed behind Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo took a look at the surroundings. There were no traces of any mechanism in the surroundings. Could it be that this place was really just a cave? Were they going to die in this cave? Yi Qing Luo calculated in her mind the distance from the top to here. The idea of using profound energy or relying on Shiju to fly up. It was obviously impossible. They would definitely fall midway due to exhaustion. "Young lady, are you looking for an exit?" Elder T was carried on Shiju's back as he followed Yi Qing Luo for a few rounds and asked hesitantly. Yi Qing Luo nodded. "Look at the ground, there." Elder T pointed to the place where they had just fallen. "I remember that I saw something there, but it was very blurry. I couldn't see it clearly." "The ground?" Yi Qing Luo's eyes lit up. She only cared about looking for traces on the surrounding walls. But he forgot to look at the ground. Following the direction that Elder T pointed, Yi Qing Luo quickly walked over. As expected, when they fell, the place where they were blocked by Shiju's enormous body, there was a very complicated but very obvious mark. However, perhaps too much time had passed. The ground was very dirty. It was impossible to clearly see what these marks were. Yi Qing Luo squatted down and touched it with her hand. Chapter 2479. There was indeed something strange about the ground. "I'll hold this pearl for you." Elder T saw Yi Qing Luo's solemn expression and wanted to do something for her. Yi Qing Luo didn't refuse and placed the luminous pearl in Elder T's hand. Elder T held the luminous pearl and stood by Yi Qing Luo's side, trying his best to make the luminous pearl's light so that Yi Qing Luo could see the ground more clearly. With one hand free, Yi Qing Luo began to use both hands to feel the concave feeling of the ground. Her fingertips brushed past and her mind followed this outline, slowly forming a picture in her mind. This concave outline was very big. It occupied at least 1/3 of the cave's terrain. Such a big outline. She had just run several laps in this cave and actually didn't find this outline. Yi Qing Luo secretly ridiculed herself in her heart. When did she become so careless? After describing it bit by bit, the outline that her palm touched gradually formed in her mind. It was an extremely huge beast. Yi Qing Luo hadn't been able to figure out the specific shape. But Yi Qing Luo could be sure that this was a beast whose size was at least bigger than Shiju, Qi or Qiyan. But she couldn't be sure. Was it the carvings on the ground that carved this beast into such a huge one? Perhaps to figure out the overall shape of this beast. Then she could leave this cave. Yi Qing Luo's eyes lit up slightly, her hands that were exploring also sped up and began to explore the interior of the beast. This was the head, eyes, nose, mouth. Yi Qing Luo touched down bit by bit, while forming the shape of the beast's head in her mind. Her fingers suddenly touched a sharp place. A sharp pain came. She trembled slightly and quickly retracted her hand. A hole was cut on her fingertip. Fresh blood gushed out. She looked down and looked at the place where her hand was cut. It was the beast's totem's teeth. The sharp teeth were still stained with her blood. That drop of bright red blood made this carved beast seem to add a bit of vitality. This thought made Yi Qing Luo's heart suddenly tightened. In a trance, she once again saw that pair of green eyes. The bloody mouth that was stained with blood let out a low roar. The eyes of the totem imprinted on the ground flickered with a faint green color. Little girl, little girl." Suddenly he heard Elder T's urgent call. Then his body shook violently. Yi Qing Luo opened her eyes with heavy eyelids. She then met Elder T's worried eyes. "Little girl, what's wrong? Are you okay?" Yi Qing Luo's breathing gradually calmed down. His eyes gradually regained their clarity. What happened to me?" Yi Qing Luo blinked her eyes as she recalled that pair of jade green eyes which she had faintly seen earlier, and her heart constricted tightly. "You just..." Elder T hesitated as if he was choosing his words carefully. "You looked like you were possessed. You stared at the ground and looked like you were in a trance. You didn't seem to hear me when I talked to you." It was the same thing again. Earlier, when he had followed Third Elder Miao to the dungeon, he had encountered such a situation. When Yiqing Luo saw that pair of jade-green eyes on the surrounding walls, it had happened before. Now, it was that pair of green eyes again. It was a bloody mouth. It was a wild beast's roar. What on earth was going on? Chapter 2480. Why did the Miao tribe treat the cave as a forbidden place? Especially the totem on the wall. She couldn't even mention it. Third Elder Miao's fear towards the cave, Yiqing Luo could feel it clearly. So, this totem, this beast, what did it represent to the Miao tribe? What secret was it hiding? If she could figure this out, not only could she leave this godforsaken place, moreover, she could coerce the Miao tribe to follow her to the East Continent to help Long Yunjian suppress the poison. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath, suppressing the messy thoughts in her mind. She smiled at Elder T and shook her head. I'm fine, just a little tired from staring at this totem, so I took a rest. I have some clues now. After confirming that Yiqing Luo was fine, Elder T was relieved. Yiqing Luo placed all her attention on the totem on the ground. Her palm followed the internal contour of the beast, confirming the body structure of the beast bit by bit. Perhaps she was highly focused. She didn't see it. The drop of blood on the totem's tooth was disappearing bit by bit. At the same time, the totem's protruding eyes. Bit by bit, it shone with a faint jade luster. Under the dazzling luminous pearl. Extremely weak. Yi Luo, how dare you trespass the Miao tribe's forbidden area? Suddenly, a deep and resounding roar resounded from within the cave. The young lady who was groping the totem on the ground frowned slightly when she heard the voice. It's coming. It's coming. Elder T's hand, which was holding the luminous pearl, trembled. Yiqing Luo raised her head and saw that there wasn't any mechanism at all. On the wall of the deep and long underground cave, a huge worm-shaped hole which was about the size of an adult man's body was reflected in her eyes. It was said to be a worm-shaped hole. It was indeed a giant worm. His body was a giant hole. But the antennae on its head and the thin black legs were still swaying randomly. A figure walked out from the body of the giant worm. It was the Miao tribe leader, Miao Yixiong. Miao Yixiong's gaze fell on Yiqing Luo. When he saw that Yiqing Luo was still alive, his eyes were burning with passion. Yi Luo, it's really you. This forbidden land of the Miao tribe was a taboo that the Miao tribe had guarded for hundreds of years. Once someone approached the forbidden area, they would be killed. Miao Yixiong could use the goo worms left there to sense the aura changes in the forbidden area. Yi Luo was the only one who trespassed into the Miao tribe. Therefore, when it sensed that there was a human aura in the forbidden land, it immediately went into hiding. Miao Yixiong did not hesitate and directly used the Miao tribe's most taxing and most harmful teleportation goo worm to teleport to the forbidden area. As expected, it was Yi Luo. She was alive. Still alive. The expression on Miao Yixiong's face was gradually tainted with madness and joy. Yi Luo, give me the antidote, give me the antidote. Yiqing Luo picked her ears as her face was filled with impatience. She was about to crack the secret of the totem. But he was interrupted by Miao Yixiong. No matter who it was, at this moment, they would be so angry that they wanted to slap this person to death. However, Miao Yixiong only had the antidote in his heart. Didn't you want the coins? I'll give it to you. However much you want, I'll give it to you. As long as you give me the antidote. I will absolutely not interfere in the matter between you and Yu. Miao Yixiong said anxiously. The eagerness in his eyes was exceptionally obvious. Star. Chapter 2481. Yiqing Luo, was there something wrong with him? Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as she looked at him impatiently. Miao clan leader, how big of a face do you have? After finding someone to kill me, you still tried in vain to buy the antidote from me? As she spoke, the disdain and mockery in her eyes deepened. If it was before, I would have been quite willing to make this deal with you. However, I'm not in a good mood right now, so there's no room for discussion. You? Miao Yixiong trembled with anger. But when he thought of the poison in Miao Rongrong's body, he could only suppress his anger. After the earlier scene where Yiqing Luo almost died in Yuji's hands, Miao Yixiong was now a little paranoid. He absolutely could not let Yiqing Luo die. He absolutely had to make Yiqing Luo hand over the antidote. Yi Luo, Yuji has already been poisoned. I can hand him over to you and you can deal with him as you wish. Miao Yixiong suddenly recalled the grudge between Yuji and Yiqing Luo. Do you think you can control him? Yiqing Luo looked at Miao Yixiong in amusement, unable to imagine how this Miao tribe's leader could be so naive. Miao Yixiong knew how strong Yuji was. That was why he specially invited Yuji to deal with her. Now that he felt that Yuji was poisoned, he wanted to decide whether Yuji would live or die. Miao Yixiong's eyes turned cold. He clenched his fists and said, "He's been poisoned by my heart-devouring parasite. As long as he's 10 feet away from me, he'll be devoured from the inside out." Yiqing Luo raised her brows. This Miao Yixiong still had some brains at the crucial moment. He knew how to use goo poison to threaten secluded silence. Yiqing Luo suddenly thought of something as her lips curled into a smile which didn't look like a smile. "10 zhang," she chuckled. "This cave seems to be more than 10 feet away from the surface." Miao Yixiong's face turned pale. That is to say, Yuji's internal organs have already been devoured by the heart-devouring worm. Coupled with the corrosion of the poison, tsk. Yiqing Luo continued as she shook her head. "He's already dead, how are you going to hand him over to me?" Miao Yixiong's face alternated between green and white. His body stiffened and trembled slightly. The veins on his forehead bulged one by one. It was obvious that he was furious. Yiqing Luo leisurely stood up as her hand gently caressed Shiju's head. Her long and narrow eyes were slightly curved. He had a leisurely look on his face. It was as if the person trapped in the Miao tribe and unable to leave was not her at all. Miao Yixiong restrained his emotions. His chest heaved up and down. For the future. For the future. He needed Yi Luo's help. He had only been humiliated by Yi Luo. Once he got his hands on the antidote, he could torture Yi Luo however he wanted. Just as he was thinking of softening his tone and discussing the conditions with Yiqing Luo, Miao Yixiong's eyes widened unconsciously. He froze on the spot. He stared foolishly at Yiqing Luo's back without blinking. His face was filled with astonishment and disbelief. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she carefully turned her head and looked behind her. A wave of jade-green light covered the sky and covered the earth. In an instant it covered her eyes. She felt a stinging pain in her eyes, and her body swayed for a moment. She couldn't help but close her eyes and raise her hand to block the intense green brilliance from hurting her eyes. Yiqing Luo didn't see. The place where she was standing was right under her feet in the center of the totem. Rays of jade-green light followed the outline of the totem, as it continued to extend. Chapter 2482. This scene was clearly reflected in Miao Yixiong's eyes. He was frightened. He staggered backwards, not daring to touch that little bit of jade-green light. Seal. The seal has been unlocked. The seal that had been sealed for 700 years has been unlocked. His voice was hoarse and filled with fear. Yiqing Luo was shrouded in the jade-green light, but she didn't feel anything special. Only her eyes were pierced by the light and could only open a slit. What entered her eyes was still jade-green. She couldn't see anything else. However, since Miao Yixiong was not far away, she could still hear the words he shouted clearly. Seal? What did Miao Yixiong mean by seal? Was this piece of jade-green light the so-called seal? What was sealed in this cave? Gradually, the surrounding light finally dissipated. Her vision was soothed and Yiqing Luo slowly opened her eyes. When she saw the scene below her feet, even she was stunned. Only to see the totem outline under her feet was flashing, emitting jade-green light. The light wasn't strong. She hadn't had time to take a closer look at the totem carved on the ground. What kind of beast was it? Suddenly, there was a turbulence under her feet. Yiqing Luo's body was unstable as she swayed slightly. The totem under her feet actually tore open a crack from the center. The crack gradually widened. Yiqing Luo immediately leaped up. By the time she stood in a safe place, the crack on the ground had already split open by more than half. Under the crack there was a piece of jade-green light and nothing could be seen clearly. The crack was about half the size of the totem. The entire cave's turbulence stopped. The cave fell into a strange silence. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she stared at the crack on the ground, trying to see clearly what was under the crack. But other than a piece of jade green, there was still a piece of jade green. Yi Luo, stop. You stop. Suddenly Miao Yixiong's anxious roar came from behind. That voice had a trace of panic. Yi Luo, this seal must not be unlocked. Once it is unlocked, the entire Nirvana realm will be affected. Yiqing Luo was about to ask what kind of seal it was when she heard that. Two cries of suppressed fear could be heard. Then came Miao Yixiong's furious roar. These two old farts are now in my hands. If you don't want them to die, stop. The two elders of the Bu family. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted. Wasn't Shijue protecting the two elders of the Bu family? With Miao Yixiong's ability, it was impossible for him to take the two Bu elders away from Shiju. Yiqing Luo immediately turned around and looked towards Miao Yixiong's direction. He saw Miao Yixiong grabbing a man's neck with one hand, his expression sinister. Shiju, on the other hand, stood at the side, its black fur standing on end as it bared its teeth and blew at Miao Yixiong. Shiju. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased even tighter. Hearing its master's voice, Shiju's arrogance instantly dropped as it whimpered a few times towards Yiqing Luo in grievance. It's not its fault, Grandma Bu's neck was being grabbed. Although Miao Yixiong didn't use much strength, but she was after all an ordinary person and he was already old, so his words sounded weak. It's us, ourselves, we don't want to drag you down, so we left its back, hoping to let it help you. So, sorry young lady, we've dragged you down again? Elder T was filled with guilt. Chapter 2483. The Miao tribe's seal was released. That would definitely be disadvantageous to the young lady. A Miao tribe leader plus the so-called seal. The two Bu elders were worried that the young lady couldn't handle it alone. So they thought of using this battle pet to help the young lady. Whoever knew, they ended up dragging the young lady down. To let the young lady be coerced by the Miao tribe leader because of them? It's alright. Yiqing Luo spoke softly as she comforted the two Bu elders. Don't be afraid, he won't touch you. Whether he moves or not depends on your performance. Miao Yixiong finally had a hostage to restrain Yi Luo and heaved a sigh of relief. But at the same time, there were some doubts in his heart. Wasn't it said that Yi Luo was someone from another continent? Why was he so familiar with the Bu family village? Everyone could see that. Yiqing Luo was very concerned about the two Bu elders. She didn't even hesitate to enter the Miao tribe alone to save them. In his mind, he suddenly remembered what third elder Miao had said before. Yi Luo was most likely related to the missing Miao tribe trader in the Bu family village. This thought made Miao Yixiong's expression congeal. He raised his malicious eyes and looked at Yiqing Luo coldly. Leave the seal and come over here. He paused and hurriedly shook his head. Wait, don't come over. You. Stand over there. Miao Yixiong pointed to a place opposite him. Miao Yixiong knew that he wasn't Yi Luo's opponent. If Yi Luo went near him, there was a high possibility that he would save the hostage. This was his only bargaining chip now. Yiqing Luo didn't make any sarcastic remarks this time. Instead, she directly walked towards the direction that Miao Yixiong pointed. Seeing Yiqing Luo being so obedient, Miao Yixiong heaved a sigh of relief. Before he opened his mouth, he was interrupted by Yiqing Luo coldly. You want the antidote? Antidote, naturally. Miao Yixiong's words were swallowed back as he answered Yiqing Luo's question. But immediately, his expression suddenly turned gloomy. But, young lady, the bargaining chip is in my hands now, so you should be the one begging me. If you want these two people to live, then listen to me obediently. Miao Yixiong's tone was extremely arrogant, as though he wanted to get back at Yiqing Luo for all the humiliation he had suffered previously. Alright, go ahead. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she generously spread out her hands. She moved. Miao Yixiong cautiously grabbed the necks of the Bu family's elders and took a few steps back. Don't move. I won't move. Yiqing Luo smiled even more indifferently. But the more she laughed, In Miao Yixiong's eyes. The more he thought about it, the more uneasy he felt. Now you know how to be obedient. In order to suppress the strange feeling in his heart, Miao Yixiong focused his attention on Yiqing Luo. This arrogant little girl was now so obedient. It was enough to prove that the two elders of the Bu family were very important to her. His eyes turned cold and suddenly he sneered, Little girl, I am not a narrow-minded person. How about you, kneel down in front of me now and kowtow to me twice? Then the matter of you poisoning Rong, trespassing into the Miao tribe and even breaking the seal that the Miao tribe had guarded for 700 years, will be written off. No way. The two elders of the Bu family immediately stopped him when they heard that. How could they possibly let the young lady kneel down for them? Although they had not spent much time with the young lady. But they were clear. The young lady was an extremely confident person. It was absolutely impossible for her to lower her head to anyone. Such a proud and unyielding young lady. Chapter 2484. Most importantly. Even if Yiqing Luo was willing, they weren't willing. Shut up. Miao Yixiong shouted coldly as his hands exerted more strength. Bu Lao Air coughed violently as both of their hands tried to break the fingers on their necks. Looking at the two of them who were like ants being pinched in her palms, struggling on their deathbed, Miao Yixiong finally had the pleasure of being able to hold his head high in the air. Thinking of how he had begged Yiqing Luo several times to give him the antidote. thinking of Yi Qing Luo's high and mighty attitude of not giving him any charity. Miao Yixiong's eyes were burning with excitement. Kneel down. Quickly kneel down. No. No. Before Elder T could finish his words, his neck was strangled by a force. He cried out miserably as his body stiffened and his struggling stopped as his eyelids started to roll. Yi Luo, if you don't kneel down, I will kill this old man and then this old woman. Miao Yixiong couldn't wait to see Yi Qing Luo being trampled under his feet. He was the dignified Miao clan leader. He had always been high up. How could he suffer a loss in the hands of a young lady time and time again? He wanted to destroy this humiliation. He was still the noble Miao clan leader. Yi Qing Luo's gaze was fixed on Elder T without blinking. Looking at Elder T's pale face and eyelids rolling outwards, as though he was on his last breath. Her gaze turned colder and colder. That gaze made Miao Yixiong's heart tremble for no reason. You! How dare you look at me with such a gaze? Miao Yixiong instinctively took a few steps back. You're not allowed to look, I order you to kneel on the ground and look at me pitifully while wagging your tail. He was shouting so fiercely. But his hands had subconsciously loosened the grip on the two old men. How would he dare to kill the two Bulao heir? This was his only bargaining chip. What? Miao clan leader, you've captured two hostages and this is your only request? Yi Qing Luo finally opened her mouth. Her voice was cold and no one could tell the emotions in her words. Miao Yixiong clenched his teeth as he growled fiercely, right? This is my only request. Are you going to kneel or not? I won't kneel. Yi Qing Luo spat out two decisive words. Good, very good. You don't want to kneel? If you don't kneel, I'll kill him. Miao Yixiong's eyes were red with anger. He raised the arm that was strangling Elder T. He threatened, hoping to see a flustered expression on Yi Qing Luo's face. But Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled upwards as she smiled gently. Miao tribe leader, do you really dare to attack? Her smile was filled with disdain and ridicule. Her long and narrow eyes slowly turned contemptuous. As long as something happens to them, the next person to die will be you. Her voice was soft. It was a very unusual conversational tone. Every word was like a hammer to Miao Yixiong's heart. He was so terrified that even his pores were dilating and his body was trembling. Miao Yixiong knew this very well. Yi Luo was serious. She had the absolute strength and confidence to kill him. Moreover, if he was the slightest bit careless, there was a high possibility that Yi Luo could save the two Bulao heir from his hands. After thinking for a moment, Miao Yixiong's arrogance gradually dissipated. His two hands loosened from the two Bulao heirs' necks and grabbed their shoulders instead. Chapter 2485. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes in interest. This Miao tribe leader was really rather adaptable to circumstances. He could be high and mighty in an instant. And he could be humble in an instant. Freely retreating and advancing. Suddenly, she understood the reason why he was able to sit on the position of tribe leader for such a long time. After all, if one was shameless, he would be invincible. Seeing Yi Qing Luo staring at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile, Miao Yixiong felt goosebumps. He understood her emotions and moved her with reason. This is the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds. What you just opened is the seal that the Miao tribe had been guarding for 700 years. Luckily, this seal is not completely opened and there's still one last layer of seal left. If the last layer of seal is opened, not only the Miao tribe will be in danger, the entire Nirvana realm will be affected and affected. Both of us are injured, so there's no way you can leave this place. So now, I should have the conditions to discuss the deal with you. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose as her gaze slowly fell onto that crack which had split open. What kind of seal is this? Yi Qing Luo didn't answer Miao Yixiong's deal but asked the doubt in her heart. The Miao tribe's seal. Why would it have such a huge impact on her? Miao Yixiong frowned as he felt displeased, but he had no choice but to answer. I'm not too sure what it is exactly. This is the ancestral order passed down by our ancestors. Every generation of tribe leader has to do their best to protect this seal from being opened. Yi Qing Luo nodded her head thoughtfully. Yi Luo, if you want to leave this forbidden grounds, only I can help you. So if you give me the antidote, I will let the three of you leave immediately and promise that I will not find any trouble with anyone in the Bu family village. Miao Yixiong saw that Yi Qing Luo wasn't going to mention about the deal, so he might as well tell her his conditions directly. Why should I believe you? Yi Qing Luo shrugged. You hate me and need the Bu family village's people to find the traitor. If I give you the antidote, will you really let the three of us leave? Miao Yixiong's eyes flashed as his expression gradually turned cold. You can only choose to believe me. He paused for a moment. The expression on his face gradually became ferocious, adding a hint of madness. Yi Luo, you should know that if Miao Rongrong dies, she won't be able to become the Holy Maiden, and I'll be ruined. Since I'm ruined, why don't we all die together? Yi Qing Luo could tell that when Miao Yixiong said these words, his eyes were almost bloodshot red, filled with madness and a trace of chilliness. He was serious. If he destroys himself, in that case he might as well destroy everything. Yi Qing Luo scoffed in disdain. A selfish person like Miao Yixiong was truly cold-blooded and emotionless. He had asked her for the antidote time and time again. It was not for Miao Rongrong's life. It was because Miao Rongrong was about to become the holy maiden of the Miao tribe. If he was destroyed, might as well destroy everything and be buried with him? Little girl, now, you only have one choice. You can only choose to believe me. Miao Yixiong didn't care about what Yi Qing Luo was thinking about him. You must know that your ability alone is strong, but with these two burdens dragging you down, don't even think of leaving the Miao tribe easily. Yi Qing Luo's eyes flickered slightly. Her eyes were filled with a chilly intent. After some time, her eyes swept past the two Bu family elders and immediately closed her eyes as she opened her mouth. Ah. Chapter 2486. Granny Bu's body smashed heavily into the stone wall beside her. The old lady's weak body was trembling in pain from this sudden fall. And the next moment, Elder T took this opportunity to shake off Miao Yixiong's arm and rushed to Grandma Bu's side. Grandpa Bu, Grandma Bu. Yi Qing Luo's heart trembled. She didn't expect them to use such a method to escape from Miao Yixiong's restraint. She hurriedly looked at Shiju. Shiju. Shiju understood, and its huge body flew towards the direction of the two Bu elders. Miao Yixiong was shocked. The two Bu elders were his only bargaining chips with Yi Qing Luo. He absolutely could not let them return to Yi Qing Luo's side. He didn't have a second chance to restrain Yi Qing Luo. However, what no one had expected was, after the two Bu elders broke free from Miao Yixiong's restraint, they didn't escape towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Instead, they headed towards the crack which was emitting a faint green light not too far away. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted as she suddenly realized something. Grandpa Bu, Grandma Bu, you? Don't do anything silly, I said I can bring you. Young lady. Elder T, who was standing in front of the crack, stopped in his tracks. That wrinkled face revealed a comfortable smile for the first time since today's thrilling journey. His hand and Grandma Bu's hand held tightly. Don't come over. He looked at Miao Yixiong without a trace of fear. Come over and we'll jump down. Miao Yixiong stopped in his tracks. Shiju also stopped. Two people and one beast stared intently at the two Bu elders. Shiju stopped because he was afraid that something would happen to them. And Miao Yixiong stopped because he was afraid that he would lose the bargaining chip to restrain Yi Qing Luo. Grandpa Bu. Yi Qing Luo's fingers curled tightly. You come with Shiju, I can bring you away. The two Bu elders looked at each other and smiled. Their brows were filled with gentleness. Young lady, thank you for everything you have done for the Bu family village. Thank you for caring for me and old madam. Elder T smiled contentedly as he said every word. His voice was on the verge of choking. We don't want to be your burden. We don't want to see you suffer because of us. As Elder T spoke, tears rolled down from the corners of his eyes. You are a good girl with a kind heart. We can't bear to see such a good girl like you suffer for us. Grandpa Bu. Yi Qing Luo's heart tightened. She, who had never been rich in emotions, couldn't help but feel a sour feeling at the corner of her eyes. I'm not making things difficult for you, and you're not my burden. In the beginning she had helped them in the Bu family village. It was because the simplicity of the Bu family village had moved her. He was used to the darkness of the world. She could see a trace of clean color, which made her feel very comfortable. Later she came to the Miao tribe and saved the two elders of the Bu family. Part of the reason was because of Miao Yi. But more than that, it was because she really felt sorry for the Bu family's elders. She didn't like to meddle in other people's business. However, he was not a cold and heartless person. She was serious about saving the two elders of the Bu family and bringing them away from the Miao tribe. Chapter 2487. I think the old man should have told you about our matters. Back then, for the future of the next generation, I brought my family and moved to Qinghua City. Our village, at least 30 over people, brought their families along with them. But we had just left the Bu family village when we were stopped by the Miao people. Grandma Bu stared at Miao Yixiong with her teary eyes. Her eyes were filled with hatred and resentment. The Miao people carried out a brutal massacre on us without any explanation. The 30 over people who left the Bu family village, from the elderly to the newborn babies, all died tragically in the hands of the Miao people. Those people were the hope of the Bu family village, the few youngsters. All died. Died in front of my eyes. My son and daughter are all dead. Only I survived. Shut up. Miao Yixiong's heart trembled. What he was afraid of was not Grandma Bu's hatred towards him. But he was afraid that Grandma Bu's words would bring out Yiqing Luo's hatred towards the Miao people and seek revenge for Grandma Bu. Grandma Bu gave a low laugh. Her laughter was filled with pain and mournfulness. Miao Yixiong, what people do, the heavens are watching. It's not that revenge is not coming, it's just that it's not time yet. You killed so many people in my Bu family village in the future. Don't even think about having a peaceful day. Miao Yixiong, the old man and I swear on our lives that even if we become ghosts, we will never let you off. We will turn into malicious spirits and haunt you forever. She laughed. The hoarse and aged voice had a hint of delight in it. She laughed for a long time. She slowly looked towards Yiqing Luo. The craziness on her face slowly turned gentle. Young lady, I'm sorry, really sorry. If it's possible, I hope you can avenge those innocent villagers in the Bu family village so that we can die without regrets. Grandma Bu. Yiqing Luo understood Grandma Bu's current feelings. Seeing her own kin, her neighbors and good friends who had accompanied her for decades, die in front of her. No matter who it was, no one would be able to tolerate it. Grandma Bu had endured for such a long time. That was her biggest limit. And if it wasn't for Yi, I would have died when the Bu family village was massacred. She is a pitiful lady without parents and no one to rely on. If it's possible, please help us take good care of her. Grandma Bu. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled violently. She shouted at Shijue, quick. Bring Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu over. Shiju roared, and its body turned into a bolt of black lightning, rushing toward the Bu family's 2 elders. However, in the end Shijue was a step too late. The Bu family's 2 elders had already made up their minds. He didn't give Yiqing Luo any chance to persuade him to stay. At the moment when Shiju pounced over, they clasped their hands and looked at each other. Her eyes were filled with a warm smile. Then he leaped into the crack and both of them fell into the jade-green light. In an instant he disappeared without a trace. Grandpa Bu. Grandma Bu. Yiqing Luo's eyes widened as she stared blankly at that crack. The 2 elders of the Bu family didn't want to be a burden to her. Resolutely he chose death. They knew very well that in this battle between Gu masters and Shen cultivators, they were ordinary people. He would only be a burden. Therefore, in order to let her not feel guilty, in order to let her leave with peace of mind. Chapter 2488. No. No. Miao Yixiong was filled with terror as he staggered backwards a few steps. His back was plastered tightly against the wall. Beads of cold sweat rolled down his forehead. His entire body was drenched in sweat. He who had lost his bargaining chip and hostage. How was he going to negotiate with Yiqing Luo? Especially, his attitude earlier had completely infuriated Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo wanted to kill him. In this place, this forbidden place which was isolated from the Miao tribe, he had no way to resist at all. Especially, earlier before Grandma Bu died, she specially requested Yiqing Luo to avenge the people in the Bu family village. Yiqing Luo was so concerned about that old fellow in the Bu family village. She would definitely kill him. The more Miao Yixiong thought, the more terrified he was. His entire body was trembling with fear. No way. He absolutely could not sit still and wait for death. He was the clan leader of the Miao tribe. How could he lose to a young lady? Miao Yixiong's vision slowly shifted to the side, where the worm-shaped hole was. A plan was formed in his mind. Just at this moment, there was a violent tremor in the hole. In an instant, rays of light that were as sharp as blades rippled out from the surroundings like waves. Boom, boom, boom. A few loud sounds were heard as the ground shook. The 4 walls, which were as hard as iron, were sliced apart layer by layer. The jade-green rays on the broken walls were piercingly cold. Extremely neat. This violent tremor. It made Yiqing Luo and Shiju unable to stand stably. Yiqing Luo summoned Shiju back into the pet space and swiftly avoided the falling stones. Her peripheral vision swept past the crack behind her. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed past a sliver of disbelief and astonishment. That crack was surging with countless waves of jade-green rays. as though it was going to swallow everything in this hole. Oh no, the seal has been unlocked. Miao Yixiong stared at the sky full of jade-green rays, like waves, lingering around the entire hole. His legs felt weak as he lay paralyzed on the ground. Yiqing Luo's eyes were pierced by the jade-green rays. What did Miao Yixiong say? The seal has been broken? In his mind, old man Song's lamenting voice rang out. So, the final layer of the seal requires a husband and wife who possess absolute true feelings as a sacrifice. A freak combination of factors actually undid the Miao tribe's seal. In other words, Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu both jumped into this so-called seal and became sacrifices to break the seal? The Miao tribe had guarded the seal for 700 years. It was unlocked. What exactly is this? Yiqing Luo had yet to finish her question. A majestic pressure completely enveloped her. The jade-green light devoured everything about her. All of his strength seemed to have been sucked out of him. His consciousness gradually faded away. His body weakly fell backwards. But Yiqing Luo didn't feel the pain from falling onto the ground. Her body was embraced into a greeting embrace. Yiqing Luo's breathing paused as she opened her eyes hazily. In his mind, a peerless demonic face of peerless elegance appeared. The man smiled at her. She was like a fox, charming and alluring. Her pink lips moved slightly as she silently spat out two words. Xian, was Xian here? Once again, when she met with a predicament, he was like a deity descending from the heavens. But what entered her nose was an extremely elegant plum fragrance. No, this wasn't Xian's smell. This person wasn't Xian. Yiqing Luo's breathing became hurried. She wanted to struggle. But her entire body had no energy at all. The more anxious she was, the further her consciousness drifted. Ding! A melodious sound was heard from the pendant on Yiqing Luo's neck. Following that, a ray of light flashed out from that pendant. Chapter 2489. Inside the underground cave. Just as Yiqing Luo was engulfed by the jade light, a stone wall in the underground cave was blasted apart by a powerful force. Following that, a tall figure sped over. That pair of ink-like deep eyes saw the young lady who was descending from mid-air. That frozen face revealed a sliver of panic. He speedily went forward and held the young lady's soft body firmly in his arms. He lowered his eyes and gazed deeply at the young lady in his arms. His cold eyes gradually surfaced a sliver of gentleness and deep affection. Yiqing Luo. His voice was low and lingering as though he was calling out his most beloved person's name, so affectionate. The young lady's slender brows creased slightly. Following that, her pink lips opened and closed as though she wanted to raise her hand to pull him. The young man's eyes were filled with joy as he raised his hand and was about to hold the young lady's hand tightly. But after seeing the shape of the young lady's mouth, the smile on his face slowly faded away. He regained his usual indifference as though he was covered with frost. Xian. The person she was calling was Dmo Xian. The surrounding jade light was like a wild beast that was brandishing its claws and fangs, swallowing everything. But when the jade light touched the red-robed young man, it avoided him like a snake or scorpion. The jade light swallowed everything in this underground cave. But it forcefully separated the young man. Yiqing Luo. The young man's voice was a little hoarse. He called out Yiqing Luo's name word by word. His voice was cold and emotionless. You are mine, the person in your heart can only be me. The young man muttered softly, his voice was stubborn. He fixed his gaze on the young lady in his arms. His icy cold eyes flashed a sliver of red glow. Suddenly he bent his head and kissed Yiqing Luo's lips. Just at the moment when he bent over. Ding! A crisp sound was heard in the silent underground cave. It was extremely clear. The young man had yet to touch Yiqing Luo's lips. His eyes were stung by the intense white light in front of him. He had no choice but to dodge backwards. He raised his other hand to block his eyes. Bam! A gust of wind from a palm landed on his chest. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels felt like the world was turning upside down, and he was in extreme pain. He spat out a mouthful of blood as his body was sent flying. The girl in his arms was also taken away by an invisible force. Yiqing Luo. The young man's cold eyes froze and he didn't even bother to wipe off the blood by the side of his mouth as he immediately flew up and charged towards Yiqing Luo. It was as if the person who had just been slapped and vomited blood was not him at all. In his eyes there was only Yiqing Luo. Zhu Wuxin, you want to take advantage of my absence to molest my woman? Are you courting death? A mellow voice faintly sounded. When the youth heard this voice, his body froze and a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. It was as if he couldn't believe it. How could that person appear here? Green light flickered. Gradually, a tall and straight figure appeared in front of him. His purple robe fluttered and he stood tall and straight. On that peerless face, his thin lips were pursed into a thin line, and his face was filled with displeasure. This man. Just by standing in front of him, Zhu Wuxin felt a powerful pressure that was continuously exerting on him. Zhu Wuxin's cold eyes flickered slightly as he slowly met the man's eyes, which could shake everything in the world. Overlord. He spat out the words coldly as his vision shifted as it focused on the unconscious young lady in his arms. Give her to me. The man's deep and handsome face surfaced a sliver of coldness. This overlord's woman naturally has this overlord's protection. She's mine. Zhu Wuxin didn't give in at all. She has always belonged to me. Diamo Shen's eyes turned slightly cold, as he lazily squinted his peach blossom eyes, as his lips curled in disdain. Following that, his finger hooked lightly as he lifted Yi Qingluo's lower jaw. Chapter 2490. A kiss. Not long after. Just purely using his warmth to warm her lips. Diamo Shen raised his eyes as he looked at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Yours? Zhu Wuxian's icy cold expression flashed past a sliver of emotion. In the depths of his deep cold eyes, numerous storms surged. What made him furious was not Diamo Shen's action. But, he clearly saw the young lady who was nestled in Diamo Shen's arms. Her brows were relaxed. Furthermore, at the instance when Diamo Shen kissed her, a faint smile surfaced on her face. And when Yi Qingluo was in his arms, she was obviously rejecting him. Even her consciousness was swallowed. Diamo Shen was the only person on her mind. He was unresigned. And unwilling to let go. He had set his mind on Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingluo must belong to him. Qingluo? Qingluo? Chu Wuxian broke out from the huge hole earlier and a few voices were heard calling out. Following that, a few figures rushed in hurriedly. How is it? Is Qingluo all right? Did we make it in time? The few people who had just rushed in. When they saw the situation in the hole clearly, they were all stunned on the spot with a dazed look. In front of them, the surging jade light had enveloped everything in the hole. The surroundings were all covered by the jade light. Standing in the middle of the hole, the two people who were completely isolated from the jade light were especially eye-catching. Two men, different types, but both were equally outstanding, both handsome like gods. One evildoer, indolent and noble. Just a simple gaze, a minute movement, it was filled with an invisible pressure. Everything around the plunderer. One was cold as ice, domineering and ruthless. It was just a simple gaze, a casual action, but it was enough to send chills down one's spine. What kind of situation was this? Overlord? Yan Xiaoyi's eyes widened and on seeing the man who was hugging Yi Qingluo, she opened her mouth in shock. You're back. Diamo Shen raised his eyes slightly as he squinted at Yan Xiaoyi, not saying a word. How is Qingluo? Is she alright? Why did she faint? Yan Xiaoyi didn't care if the overlord answered her question as she asked worriedly. I'm fine. Diamo Shen lowered his eyes, gently gazing at the young lady in his arms. You don't have to worry. It's good that you're fine. It's good that you're fine. Yan Xiaoyi heaved a sigh of relief and her gaze swept the surroundings. Where's that Miao tribe leader? Didn't he also come to this cave? Behind him, a petite figure quickly ran a few steps forward. And, where are Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu? What happened to them? Tisk tisk. Zoamo rubbed his chin and clicked his tongue. The power of this seal is quite strong. If it were an ordinary person, they would have been completely devoured by the power of this seal. Miao Yi's delicate body trembled. Impossible. Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu? How could they? He escaped. A low and cold voice rang out indifferently. Everyone's gaze quickly followed the source of the sound. Gui Wu, who had an indifferent expression on his face, calmly said, when it sensed the powerful energy of the seal, a surge of energy escaped from the cave. Is it the Miao Patriarch or Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu? Miao Yi's face was pale, her voice trembling. Gui Wu didn't answer her question. Instead he raised a pair of indifferent, emotionless eyes, looking at Diamo Shen without blinking. Chapter 2491. These words caused everyone's hearts to tremble. All of their gazes converged onto Diamo Shen in unison. Not the overlord? Yan Xiaoyi was so shocked that she swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Then, who is he? He's still carrying our Qing Luo? Xiao Jin held onto Yan Xiaoyi's shoulders, his face also full of shock. It's undoubtedly Lord Dizun. Even if someone could disguise as Lord Dizun, but this temperament besides Lord Dizun, who else could it be? Zhu Wuxian fixed his eyes on Diamo Xian. A pair of cold eyes without any warmth. You are not him. His words were cold and emotionless. However, Zhu Wuxian's tightly pursed thin lips seemed to have turned into thin ice, betraying his anger at this moment. The glint in Diamo Xian's eyes seemed to be filled with a faint trace of ridicule. He narrowed his peach blossom eyes and laughed in a low voice. I am not him, so you think you have the right to touch Lil Luo? You are not him and she is not yours, Zhu Wuxian spat out coldly. His eyes were ice cold. Diamo Xian wasn't shaken by his aura but instead laughed lightly. So, you also admit that Lil Luo, is this Lord's woman? Zhu Wuxian's expression turned stiff as he stared coldly at Diamo Xian. He knitted his brows tightly, already having doubts in his heart. This person could not possibly not be Diamo Xian. No one in the world could imitate such a temperament. Old man Gui Wu, if you don't make your words clear, this lord will not be able to explain. Diamo Xian raised his brows as he looked at Gui Wu, who had an indifferent expression. Master Gui Wu, what's going on? Is he really the venerable overlord? Lord Gui Wu, don't leave us hanging. You're making us nervous. Xiao Jin and Yan Xiaoyi anxiously looked towards Gui Wu. Gui Wu indifferently raised his eyes before calmly saying, he doesn't count. What do you mean by not considered? Yan Xiaoyi was about to die from anxiety due to Gui Wu. He's only a clone of Dizun, and not the real Dizun. Gui Wu finally said the second half of the sentence. However, the few of them were somewhat dumbfounded. What was a doppelganger? What do you mean it's not my main body? The Overlord should have extracted a strand of his consciousness and placed it in an object on Yi Qing Luo's body. At specific times, this consciousness will turn into the Overlord's clone and replace the Overlord to protect Yi Qing Luo. Gui Wu explained in a rare patient manner. His gaze was like a torch as he stared straight at Diamo Xian. But extracting one's consciousness and transforming it into a doppelganger, not only will it consume more than half of one's profound energy, if the doppelganger suffers any damage, the main body will also suffer the same injury. Then he is. Hearing Gui Wu's words, Yan Xiaoyi was so shocked that she was unable to regain her senses. He can be called a venerable sovereign, but he's just a clone of a venerable sovereign. Gui Wu continued Yan Xiaoyi's words. For the Overlord to be able to do so much for student Yi Qing Luo, I can tell that he really dotes on student Yi Qing Luo. This was more than just being doted on. He was practically using his life to pamper her. The place the Overlord was going to this time was the Upper Realm. The Upper Realm that was filled with experts. The Overlord had even consumed more than half of his Xian energy. If the Overlord was in the Upper Realm, and accidentally discovered that he had consumed more than half of his Xian energy, wouldn't he take the opportunity to make a move on the Overlord? It was impossible for the Overlord not to have thought of these problems. But in order to ensure Qing Luo's safety, he resolutely chose to take the risk himself. They were so touched that they were about to cry. After listening to Gui Wu's explanation, everyone's feelings were different. Chapter 2492. Zhu Wuxian stared at Diamo Xian's face without blinking. His eyes flickered with a strange glint. Just as he was about to bend his head to kiss Yi Qing Luo, the pendant on Yi Qing Luo's neck surged with a terrifying energy. Diamo Xian's consciousness. It was hidden on the pendant that Yi Qing Luo wore. He actually used this kind of method to stay by Yi Qing Luo's side. His hands, which were hanging by the side of his body, clenched tightly into fists. Everyone was moved and envied the couple in front of him. It stung his eyes. That young lady was obviously in his arms. She was clearly his girl. On what basis did Diamo Xian beat him to it? He didn't like Diamo Xian. Didn't like to see Diamo Xian hugging Yi Qing Luo. Didn't like to see Yi Qing Luo in Diamo Xian's arms, that relaxed look. Didn't like those people who treated Diamo Xian as Yi Qing Luo's lover, denying his identity. Diamo Xian acutely sensed the intense resentment emitting from Zhu Wuxian. He tightened his grip on the person in his arms as he squinted his long peach blossom eyes. Zhu Wuxian, you know very well that the person Lil Luo chose is me. If you really love Lil Luo then you should respect Lil Luo's choice. He paused as his lips curled into a smile. Isn't it said that if you really love someone, it is to see her happiness? Lil Luo and me together is happiness. That smile was filled with provocation. Zhu Wuxian's pupils constricted as his deep and cold eyes shot out an icy chill directly towards Diamo Xian. Diamo Xian's brows rose as the smile on his lips grew wider. If you insist on getting Lil Luo, disregarding her wishes, then do you think you're fit to use the word love, to express your feelings towards Lil Luo? I don't love her. An icy cold word was spat out from Zhu Wuxian's mouth. The person she chose is me. Diamo Xian sneered. Are you lying to yourself? She said that she will marry me, then she must keep to the promise between us. She promised me that she is mine, Zhu Wuxin said stubbornly. Every word he said was filled with a sense of danger. Diamo Xian frowned slightly when he heard that. He also knew that for someone as stubborn as Zhu Wuxin, nothing he said would be able to change his deep-rooted beliefs. He could not be bothered to waste his breath on Zhu Wuxin. Lil Luo, also did not have time to waste here. He lowered his eyes and looked tenderly at the disguised face of the person in his arms. He didn't lift his eyelids, but the person he was talking to was obviously Zhu Wuxian. Lil Luo, is this Lord's woman, no matter if it's this lifetime or the next lifetime. Forever and ever she will always be my Diamo Xian's woman. You will never have this chance. I won't let go. Zhu Wuxian's eyes were gloomy and cold as his deep eyes gazed deeply at Yiqing Luo. Soon after, he turned around and walked towards the huge hole that he came from without looking back. In an instant, Zhu Wuxin's aura disappeared from the cave. Yan Xiaoyi and the others were still in a daze towards this baffling fight for Yiqing Luo battle which ended in such a baffling manner. Yan Xiaoyi blinked as she recalled Zhu Wuxian's unemotional denial earlier. He doesn't love Qing Luo? That look of his. Doesn't it look like he doesn't love Qing Luo? Ever since he found out that Yiqing Luo trespassed into the Miao tribe alone. Until he found out that Yiqing Luo had fallen into the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds, the dangerous sealed grounds. Chapter 2493. Zhu Wuxian, that madman, he simply released his perception like a madman and followed Miao clan leader, using brute force along the way to break through 1,000 meters deep hole, rushing over here to save Qing Luo? He actually said he doesn't love Qing Luo? Who is he trying to bluff? Recalling Zhu Wuxian's craziness earlier, Yan Xiaoyi was still feeling a lingering fear. Zhu Wuxian could be said to be at the stage where he didn't even care about his life. This lord will thank him on behalf of Lil Luo. Diamo Xian spoke calmly as he raised his eyes in warning. Yan Xiaoyi felt a chill down her spine as she sniggered a few times and replied in an extremely quick-witted manner. I know. Overlord, I will absolutely not tell Qing Luo about this matter. Qing Luo doesn't owe that madman Zhu Wuxian any favor. Diamo Xian nodded his head in satisfaction. Overlord, the split body cannot exist for too long. It will affect the original body greatly, especially in this place. You'd better return to your original body first. The silent ghost martial artist opened his mouth once again. When Kitty Li heard that, she immediately walked towards Diamo Xian as she opened her arms wide. Overlord brother-in-law, hand sister over to Kitty Li. Quickly return to your original body. If sister knows that you hurt your body because of her, she will be upset. However, Diamo Xian hugged Yiqing Luo and avoided her. No worries. He spoke in a low and hoarse voice as he gazed at the person in his arms as his brows were filled with longing. This lord misses her. Sister misses you too. Kitty Li blinked her spirited black eyes as she spoke in a serious tone. So overlord brother-in-law, quickly come back, don't let sister keep missing you. The arm which was hugging the young lady tightened once again. Kitty Li didn't notice Diamo Xian's emotional changes. She only told overlord brother-in-law everything that she knew in her heart. She still wanted to say something. But her petite body was suddenly pulled by a strong force as she fell backwards. Kitty Li cried out in shock as she wanted to struggle. But her body fell into a boiling hot embrace. A seductive voice laughed softly beside her ear. Little wild cat, don't bother about overlord's matters. This lord misses you too. So. Zoamo, you frivolous man. Kitty Li's cheeks flushed red the moment she smelled the familiar bamboo fragrance. Zoamo narrowed his red phoenix eyes and stared at the shy kitten in his arms. His smile became more and more playful. Tieske, you look like a red apple. It seems that the little wild cat also misses me very much. Who missed you? Kitty Li struggled with a red face and scratched him with her claws. However, her hands were locked in Zomo's embrace. He smiled mischievously. Your face is filled with the words miss me, miss me, miss me? Kitty didn't. Kitty Li's cheeks turned even redder. She stopped scratching Zoamo and raised her hands to cover her face. This indirectly proved how much she missed Zoem. Enough, you two. Yen Xiaoyi looked at the dog food which was stuffed into her mouth unknowingly. Qing Luo is still unconscious, the both of you please be more serious. Kitty Li used her hand to knock the man behind her. Did you hear that? I asked you to be more serious. Zoemo smiled as he lowered his head and kissed her face. All right, this lord is serious. Serious your big head. Kitty Li's face turned even redder. Chapter 2494. Diamo Xian seemed as though he hadn't heard Yen Xiaoyi's words. His gaze was fixated on the person in his arms. A pair of watery peach blossom eyes. Lingering with infinite tenderness. Yen Xiaoyi's stretched out hand quietly retracted back under this atmosphere. Xiao Jin sighed softly as he held Yen Xiaoyi's shoulder and comforted her softly. Forget it, Overlord has been separated from Qing Luo for such a long time and earlier he was agitated by Zhu Wuxin, so naturally he can't bear to leave Qing Luo. But his original body? Yen Xiaoyi looked at Diamo Xian worriedly. Overlord has his own sense of propriety. Xiao Jin patted Yen Xiaoyi's shoulder. From what I see, the moment he saw student Yi Qing Luo, he had already lost his sense of propriety. Gui Wu's indifferent voice interrupted Xiao Jin's consolation. His gaze looked straight at Diamo Xian. Overlord, you should be very clear that this is the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds. Gui Wu's voice was very calm but the meaning in his words was hair-raising. The seal's power is getting stronger and stronger. Going against the seal's power will only exhaust a large amount of your doppelganger's power and your original body will also suffer the same amount of damage. Everyone's gazes instantly congealed on Diamo Xian. Overlord, you and Qing Luo still have a lot of time. Go back first, we will definitely take good care of Qing Luo and will absolutely not let any other man get close to her. When Yen Xiaoyi heard that, she instantly panicked. When Qing Luo regained consciousness, to know that Diamo Xian not only left his doppelganger by her side, he even exhausted his power to go against the Miao tribe seal's power. Wouldn't his heart ache to death? Gui Wu. Diamo Xian didn't reply Yen Xiaoyi but shifted his gaze onto Gui Wu as he spoke in a calm tone. I'll have to trouble you to bring them away from here. Gui Wu frowned slightly. You're not intending to leave? Diamo Xian looked at the person in his arms and nodded indifferently. Gui Wu didn't persuade him but really followed Diamo Xian's intention as he turned around and walked towards the hole which Zhu Wuxin used his brute force to blast open. Zoemo hooked Kitty Li's slender waist. Little wildcat, let's go. Kitty Li slapped his hand hard. Didn't you hear what Master Gui Wu said? If Di Zun's brother-in-law didn't leave this place, it would consume his strength. How could Kitty leave my sister and Di Zun and brother-in-law behind? Silly Kitty, with Di Zun here, your sister will be fine. Zoemo pinched Kitty Li's pretty face. Oh. Kitty Li's attitude was firm. She would never leave when her sister was in danger. I won't leave either. Yen Xiaoyi pursed her lips. Gui Wu stood at the entrance of the cave and said impatiently, It's fine if you don't want to leave. Di Zun wants to die but I don't. I don't have that much energy and I don't need to waste my own strength. From the moment these people entered the underground cave, it was the barrier set up by the ghost marshal that was able to block the devouring power of the surrounding seal. Kitty Li and Yen Xiaoyi spoke at the same time. Diamo Xian interrupted the both of them. This is little Luo Er's opportunity. The Bu family village's two elders used their own lives to open up this opportunity for little Luo. As for the rest, little Luo Er needs to complete it himself. Opportunity? Yen Xiaoyi and the others were stunned. Leave this place with Gui Wu. I will take care of little Luo Er's safety. Saying that, Diamo Xian carried Yi Qing Luo as he turned around and walked directly towards the crack which was surging with jade green light. Chapter 2495. Yi Qing Luo's consciousness was still in a daze, unable to gather. She felt that her entire body was floating as though she was a feather. Lil Luo Er. Beside her ear was that familiar calling voice. That voice was filled with lingering love. It made her heart feel sweet for no reason. She wanted to open her mouth to respond to that person's call. But her lips seemed to be stuck tightly together. She had no way to open her mouth. Lil Luo Er. Lil Luo Er. Lil Luo Er. The calling voice was still going on. Sometimes it was far away, sometimes it was close at hand. However, the emotions contained in each voice were stronger than the last. Who was it? Who was calling her? She wanted to open her eyes. She wanted to open her mouth to call the person who was calling her. But her entire body was unable to move. She could only allow her body to float up and down, float, float, float. That calling voice became softer and softer. Gradually she couldn't hear the voice anymore. Couldn't hear it. She couldn't hear it anymore? Suddenly Yiqing Luo's heart twitched fiercely. A piercing pain made Yiqing Luo give a dull moan. The next moment she felt that her feather-like body was being tugged by something fiercely. Her body finally had a sense of reality. Finally had a sense of weight. Following that, a warm touch warmed her pink lips which were stuck together, unable to open no matter what. The elegant sandalwood fragrance filled her nostrils. First was a simple touch. Following that, it was a series of violent attacks. The scorching aura started to rise. Yiqing Luo's feather-like body, at the same time as the temperature of her body rose, gradually had a real sense of reality. She was no longer like a feather, drifting with the wind. Her consciousness was no longer in a trance without any feeling. The sandalwood fragrance's smell became thicker and thicker. Her entire being was almost corroded by this sandalwood fragrance. Her entire body was restless and the scorching feeling made her subconsciously react accordingly. Lil Luo. This time, the voice entered her ears extremely clearly. Right beside her ears, as though it was whispering the world's only treasure, extremely pampering. Yiqing Luo's heart melted. Hence. Under this fierce attack, Yiqing Luo gradually regained her senses. Xian, a hoarse voice spilled out from Yiqing Luo's pink lips with difficulty. She could finally control her body. Overjoyed, she was just about to call out the man's name. Unbeknownst to her, the man's large palm had already reached for her belt. He gently pulled. His robe loosened. Yiqing Luo suddenly shuddered and her half-dazed mind suddenly cleared up at this moment. The next moment she opened her eyes. What entered her eyes was a pair of bottomless, inky eyes. In his inky black eyes, sparks of fire were burning. Some kind of emotion was very obvious. Oh. Before she could open her mouth, her lips were ruthlessly sealed again. The man's familiar face was deeply reflected in her eyes. Her heart was pounding. Her hands instinctively clenched his collar. Xian, it really was Xian. She wasn't dreaming. Xian, he really came back. The thick longing instantly eroded Yiqing Luo's heart. The corner of her eyes gradually became wet. Perhaps it was because of the longing for Dmo Xian. Or perhaps it was because of Dmo Xian's fierce kiss. Suddenly Yiqing Luo, who was indulged in the longing for Dmo Xian, suddenly widened her eyes, her cheeks flushed red. She raised her hand and grabbed a certain disobedient hand. She wanted to stop it. But the man kissed her even more fiercely. Chapter 2496. But Dmo Xian's hand became more honest. Little Luo, after a long time, the man slowly let her go. He murmured Yiqing Luo's name as he rested his head on her neck. Sang Xian's voice was low and hoarse as it revealed infinite affection. I miss you so much. The man didn't conceal his feelings at all, which made Yiqing Luo unable to raise her temper. She blamed him for kissing her till she couldn't breathe when she just woke up. She snorted angrily, showing her delicate side. She slowly raised her weak hands and wrapped them around his sturdy waist. I missed you too. The man's arms around her body tightened. His face rubbed against her neck, his warm breath slowly awakened Yiqing Luo's sensitivity. They embraced for a moment. In Dmo Xian's arms, Yiqing Luo felt especially at ease. His body also gradually relaxed. Have you settled everything in the upper realm? You won't leave, right? She nestled in his embrace, her voice soft and coquettish. You stinky heartless man. You abandoned me for half a month. We're separated by a great plain. Even if I missed you, I couldn't contact you. The hard body of the man who was carrying her suddenly stiffened. Yiqing Luo acutely felt it. She bit her lower lip and placed her hands on his chest. He pushed it slightly. The man's head left her shoulder. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and stared at him without blinking. You still want to leave? Dmo Xian's fingertips twined around a strand of her hair. He lowered his head and kissed her hair. I'm sorry. It was a tacit agreement. He would leave again. He would be lying if he said he wasn't sad. But looking at the fatigue in Dmo Xian's brows, that face filled with longing, his eyes filled with tenderness. No matter how unhappy Yiqing Luo was, neither of them could bring themselves to be angry. She missed Dmo Xian. How would Dmo Xian not miss her? She believed that if it was possible, Dmo Xian would absolutely want to stick together with her at any moment, to become a conjoined twins. But he couldn't. He was not only the venerable sovereign of the Nirvana realm. There was also another layer, an even more noble identity. A long time ago she had often heard people talking about it: the greater one's ability, the greater the responsibility. Although to Diamo Xian, what happened to others had nothing to do with him. However, with his strength and status, he would not allow himself to be willful, even if it had nothing to do with him. I have to get involved too. Look at the tiredness in his eyes. Look at the dark circles under his eyes. It was clearly for his responsibility, so that he could meet her as soon as possible. That was why he was so desperate. How could she bear to blame Diamo Xian? Her heart ached for Diamo Xian. But, in Diamo Xian's eyes, that was Lil Luo's silence was definitely because she was blaming him. Lil Luo, don't stay silent, hit me if you're unhappy. I'll let you hit me, don't ignore me. Diamo Xian grabbed Yiqing Luo's little hand and swung it towards his face. Diamo Xian, who had never coaxed a woman before. The Diamo Xian who could flirt with Yiqing Luo in minutes. At this moment he was like a child who had done something wrong, using such a childish method to coax Yiqing Luo. She was really angry at the bottom of her heart. At this moment they would probably be so amused that they would vanish into thin air. Alright, stop fooling around. Yiqing Luo forcefully retracted her hand. How could she bear to hit him? Who asked me to choose such an outstanding man? What else can I do? Even if he's kneeling, I'll still pamper him. Yiqing Luo's words made Diamo Xian stunned. Why did these words sound so strange? But her heart was filled with sweetness. Chapter 2497. Stop. Stop. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and covered the man's lips. The scorching lips were imprinted on her palm. The scorching sensation made her feel as though she had touched a burning flame. Her cheeks were once again dyed crimson red. Stop fooling around, where are we now? Yiqing Luo glared at him coquettishly. Her brows were filled with a young lady's charm. Only in front of Diamo Xian. And only Diamo Xian alone could see this Yiqing Luo. Xian, do you know where we are? While Yiqing Luo was talking to Diamo Xian, she sized up the surroundings. As far as the eye could see, it was an empty piece of jade light. Apart from the jade green light there was nothing else. Just as Yiqing Luo pulled Diamo Xian and looked around. Not sure if it was her misconception. Somehow, Diamo Xian's body stiffened slightly for a moment. She was stunned as she turned back to look at Diamo Xian in puzzlement. What she met was a pair of peach blossom eyes filled with warmth. His thin lips curved into an extremely shallow arc and his gaze was deep and serene, as if he wanted to imprint her deeply into his mind. Yiqing Luo's heart had an inexplicable fluster. She instinctively grabbed Diamo Xian's collar tightly. Slender fingers hooked onto his. Xian, are you hiding something from me? She understood her man too well. Diamo Xian must have something to hide from her. Moreover, this matter was related to her and this piece of jade light world. Diamo Xian didn't answer. Under the light, the man's deep and handsome face revealed a hazy and dreamy brilliance. She couldn't see clearly the expression on his face. The only thing she could see was the deep affection and pampering in his eyes. Xian. Not waiting for a reply, Yiqing Luo's heart instantly panicked. The hand that held Diamo Xian tightened even more. After a long time in the jade light, the man's magnetic voice rang beside her ear. Nothing. He spat out 2 words. Lowering his head, his warm breath slowly seeped into her earlobe. The young lady's petite body uncontrollably trembled slightly. Her grip on his collar loosened as well. This is the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds. Diamo Xian gently held her hand as he explained in a gentle voice. His heart was beating normally. His voice was also very normal. It was as if that moment of shock and speechlessness was just an illusion. Yiqing Luo's arms wrapped tightly around his waist. She inhaled the sandalwood fragrance from his body. Only then did he slowly calm himself down. The 2 elders of the Bu family used their own lives to open the seal of the Miao tribe's forbidden land for you. Diamo Xian felt the breathing of the young lady in his arms, gradually becoming smoother, and between his brows, a trace of a relieved smile flashed past. His large palm gently patted the girl's delicate back. His eyes were quiet and unblinking, almost greedily looking at everything about her. Yiqing Luo's petite body stiffened at the mention of the Bu family's 2 elders. Her little hands tightened as she clasped onto Diamo Xian's wrist and raised her head from his embrace. This is the inside of the seal? She remembered when the emerald light had covered the sky and covered the earth. Miao Yixiong shouted that the seal was unlocked. Following that, her consciousness was swallowed by the power of the seal. In the end, she seemed to have sensed Diamo Xian's arrival. Diamo Xian had rushed over in time to save her, and even brought her to the inside of the seal. Chapter 2498. Yiqing Luo didn't understand the deeper meaning behind Diamo Xian's words. The next moment she felt her body turning light. A heavy kiss landed on her lips. The man's breathing was heavy as he bit down harshly. Yiqing Luo frowned in pain as she raised her fist to push him. But before she could even raise her hand, the man had already loosened his grip on her. Lil Luo, wait for me to come back. A light and ethereal voice floated in his ears. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled as she steadied herself and immediately stretched out her hand to grab Diamo Xian. But there was only air in her hand. The jade-green light enveloped and the man's purple robe was faintly discernible. His handsome face was filled with reluctance to part with her. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo grabbed Diamo Xian once again as her tone was anxious. But her hand couldn't touch Diamo Xian at all. As the jade-green light grew stronger, the man's figure started to dissipate. I miss you so. I will return to your side immediately. The last silent sentence was clearly transmitted into Yiqing Luo's ears. Ah Xian. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo shouted Diamo Xian's name loudly. But what pounced forward was still air. The man's figure had completely disappeared before her eyes. Only a faint sandalwood fragrance was left, proving that he had indeed existed. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo stared blankly at the direction where Diamo Xian disappeared. Her legs turned soft as she knelt on the ground. Her eyes were empty as she frowned, not understanding what was going on. Why? He was still fine earlier, telling each other how much they missed each other. He even passionately did that kind of thing. Why did it suddenly disappear? He said there was something important to her in this seal? But what was it? Could it be more important than him? Rumble. Suddenly, a thunderous roar resounded in his ears. Following that, Yiqing Luo's body shook violently. The ground beneath her feet was shaking. Yiqing Luo was shocked. She immediately steadied herself as she surveyed the surroundings vigilantly. Under the boundless jade light, Yiqing Luo totally couldn't see what kind of earth-shaking and mountain-shaking scene was. She could feel the ground beneath her feet cracking open with a shwa 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 sound. But even if he lowered his head to look, what entered his eyes was a green light. She felt like she was in a green space. He couldn't see heaven and earth, he couldn't see everything, but the cracking feeling under his feet was especially obvious. At the same time, one of her feet stepped on empty air and she staggered. She followed her instincts and moved her feet. Old Man Song, just what is this place? While following the aura, she quickly avoided the area where the ground had split open while contacting Old Man Song. However, her connection with Old Man Song seemed to have been cut off. She couldn't sense the aura within the Azure Dew bracelet at all. Boom. Another dull rumble rang out. Compared to before, the tremor was even more intense. The rumbling seemed to come from under his feet. Yiqing Luo was swayed so much that she almost lost her footing, swaying left and right to maintain her own balance. Hiss. A piercing buzzing sound shook Yiqing Luo's eardrums. Her brain was pierced by waves of pain. Yiqing Luo's slender brows tightened as she felt the feeling of the ground splitting open. She leaped up and quickly rolled backwards. Bam. Her back bumped into something hard. That hard feeling Yiqing Luo couldn't use words to describe. Chapter 2499. Damn it. What the hell was this place? Ah Xian, that bastard. After bringing her here, he disappeared on his own. Even if she were to meet with any opportunities here, he still had to make it clear to her. Now she was in a state of complete confusion. Yiqing Luo's eyebrows twitched in pain. She shifted her body and stretched out her hand to touch behind her. When she touched it, it was a hard and cold thing. It was very smooth, but at a distance there would be some bumps. Very hard, very hard. Yiqing Luo was confident that she could break a wall with one punch. But when she touched this thing, Yiqing Luo could conclude that this thing was even sturdier than those Supreme Being grade or God grade armors. Suddenly that hard thing seemed to move. The ear-piercing buzz in her ears once again shook her eardrums. Hiss, hiss, an extremely close distance. Yiqing Luo felt that her eardrums were about to burst. She subconsciously raised her hand and covered her ears. But her hand, once that dog left that hard thing, her body suddenly felt light. Her feet seemed to have stepped on empty air and instantly fell down. F***K. This series of changes made Yiqing Luo unable to hold back and burst out a vulgar word. What if*King Husky? This was a piece of jade green space. She couldn't see anything clearly. She couldn't sense anything. She was completely unable to determine how long this kind of fall would last. She had just fallen into a 1,000-meter hole. Now it was here again. Life or death unknown. Yiqing Luo didn't have the mood to complain. She took a deep breath and forced herself to concentrate, gathering the profound energy into her legs, ready to land safely. Roar, 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 an earth-shattering roar went straight to the 9 heavens. The familiar sound made Yiqing Luo's concentration stagnate. Chi-Chi. Did she hear it wrongly? Why did she seem to hear Chi-Chi's tiger roar? Roar. As if responding to her words, the wild roar was heard once again. Following that, her body was caught by a ball of soft fur. Chi-Chi. Is it really you? Yiqing Luo's hands hugged the soft thing beneath her, the familiar smell and touch. It was indeed Chi-Chi. Master, the childish voice was indeed Chi-Chi's voice. Yiqing Luo sat properly on Chi-Chi's back. Why did you come out? How is your body? Old Man Song said that you and Chi-Yen are asleep because you are evolving. What do you think? Chi-Chi, whom he had not seen for a long time, finally appeared in front of him again. Yiqing Luo was extremely touched. A piece of his heart was finally put down. Chi-Yen, it woke up too? We're all fine. It's all thanks to Master's heaven-returning nether pill. Chi-Chi smiled and wagged his tail. We don't need little Chi here. Chi-Chi will protect Master. Yiqing Luo rubbed Chi-Chi's back. Chi-Chi, do you know what this place is? I don't know. Chi-Chi answered its master's question honestly. It carried Yiqing Luo on its back as it ran forward aimlessly and said, but here. There's a very familiar scent. If Chi-Chi didn't smell wrongly, Master will be able to see your new companion very soon. New companion? Chi-Chi's words made Yiqing Luo slightly stunned. In her mind, the image of Chi-Yen suddenly appeared. A thought gradually formed in her mind. Chapter 2500. She didn't know how long Chi-Chi had been running with her. Yiqing Luo only saw a piece of green in front of her. She didn't know where Chi-Chi had taken her. Master, do you feel it? Chi-Chi seemed to be very excited. Its tail kept swaying. The strength was so great that Yiqing Luo could feel the wind from the swaying tail. Yiqing Luo said that she didn't feel anything except the wind. Chi-Chi's mood suddenly lost a lot. You really don't feel it? Yiqing Luo face-bombed. What did Xiao Qi want her to feel? Could it be a call prompt? Chi-Chi leaped and seemed to be circling around something, striding its limbs again. Strange, how could Master not feel it? After several laps, Yiqing Luo expressed a face of confusion. You stupid tiger. A clear voice sounded out of thin air. Chi-Chi's tiger body shook. Little Chi-Chi. If you say Chi-Chi is stupid, Chi-Chi will. Chi-Chi's little voice was soft and cute. After holding it for a long time, Yiqing Luo thought that Chi-Chi would fight back with great lethality. Only to hear Chi-Chi roaring angrily, Chi-Chi also wants to call you stupid bird. Yiqing Luo. My Chi-Chi is amazing, worthy of being her family's pure and lovely little thing. I said you are stupid, you still don't admit it? Chi-Yan's disdainful voice with arrogance. What do you want the ugly woman to feel? She is not a sacred beast. Yiqing Luo. She had already become her war pet. Could she show some respect to her as a war pet? Chi-Chi whispered woo-woo, seemed to be very wronged by Chi-Yan's scolding. The woman who was ignored by the two sacred beasts, cleared her throat and rubbed Chi-Chi's head with her little hand. Don't talk in riddles, what do I need to do? Let's hurry up. Listening to the conversation between Chi-Chi and Chi-Yen. Obviously these two people knew where they were. Chi-Yen snorted, his tone was full of disgust. Stupid tiger, don't follow the ugly woman, just throw her down. Chi-Yen didn't show up, still in the pet space. But just listening to its tone, Yiqing Luo could almost imagine the arrogant and disdainful look on Chi-Yan's face. Yiqing Luo expressed that as the owner of a Tsundra war pet, it was really too sad. Throw her off? Was he going to enjoy the thrill of falling from a high altitude again and not knowing when he would land? Chi-Chi, don't be influenced by Qiao. My Chi-Chi loves you the most. Yiqing Luo was just about to hug Chi-Chi's neck to express Chi-Chi's gentleness and not to be in cahoots with a certain arrogant bird. However, before he could finish his words, her body felt light and then she fell from the sky as she was familiar with it. Chi-Chi really threw her down from her back. Didn't you say not to learn bad things from Qiao? Why was Chi-Chi so obedient to Qiao? Yiqing Luo had yet to gather her profound energy again. Then he felt a powerful force coming down on him. Her pupils reflected an extremely gorgeous green brilliance. Bang! That ray of jade light fiercely crashed onto Yiqing Luo's body. Yiqing Luo only felt a strong numbing pain all over her body. Her vision turned black and she fainted. Chi-Chi, who was standing by the side, stared at Yiqing Luo, who was wrapped in a piece of jade light, worriedly. The current Yiqing Luo, suspended in midair. Numerous jade lights entangled her bit by bit. Chapter 2501. It's all right. Qi Yin replied indifferently, if she can't even bear this bit of power, then what qualifications does she have to be our master? Chi-Chi's eyes widened as it shook its head in disapproval. Little Chi-Chi, what you said is wrong. No matter what master is or how powerful she is Chi-Chi's master. It was not because of its master's ability that it became its master's battle pet. Really liked its master. It was willing to stay by its master's side and protect her. Qi Yin didn't speak again for a moment. Chi-Chi was a little angry because of what Qi Yin said earlier and didn't want to bother with Qi Yin anymore. It stared at its master without blinking. Like a knight guarding its master. Yiqing Luo was in a daze. She only felt that there was a voice in her mind constantly clamoring. She wanted to hear clearly whose voice it was. But that voice was illusory and she couldn't hear it clearly. The only thing she could be sure of was, it was that voice that kept calling her name. There seemed to be something in her chest, like a whirlpool fiercely stirring. Following that, she felt as if something had surged into her body. Her whole body was swollen and painful. She groaned in pain. The clamoring in her mind became louder and noisier at this moment. What was that voice saying? Why did it keep calling her name? In a daze, Yiqing Luo saw a dash of jade light, flickering in front of her eyes. She frowned, trying to see more clearly. But she only saw that wisp of jade light, turned into jade fog, slowly seeping into her heart. At the same time, a surge of majestic power, like an avalanche, filled her limbs and bones. The heaven and earth's spiritual qi crazily swam in her body. Ah! Yiqing Luo cried out in pain from the impact of this surging power. The next moment she suddenly opened her eyes. Her body was like a spring sitting upright. The moment she opened her eyes, a ray of jade light shot out from her eyes. Master! Seeing Yiqing Luo open her eyes, Chi-Chi immediately went forward, its tiger eyes looking at Yiqing Luo. However, Yiqing Luo didn't have the energy to answer it. The moment she opened her eyes, she noticed the changes in her body. She quickly sat down cross-legged. Yiqing Luo could clearly feel the barrier of advancement. Ever since she advanced to the sky profound realm. No matter how much heaven and earth spiritual energy she absorbed. No matter how fast her profound strength grew. She couldn't even advance. And this time, he had been stuck at the profound rank for so long. Finally, there were signs of advancement. Was this the opportunity that Ashen had mentioned? Numerous profound energy was guided by Yiqing Luo in his body, as it flowed bit by bit. The majestic and turbulent energy was getting stronger and stronger. It was like a whirlpool that came one after another. Boom. In Yiqing Luo's mind, a sudden clap of thunder exploded. The profound energy that was swirling around his body shook as well. Following that, it slowly merged into Yiqing Luo's body. Everything in the surroundings gradually regained its tranquility. Yiqing Luo's breathing also calmed down. She slowly opened her eyes. Her enchanting eyes twinkled, causing her disguised face to look even more dazzling. She exhaled a breath of foul air. Her entire body was filled with a refreshing feeling. Master! Chi-Chi cried out in joy, striding forward on its four limbs as it flew to Yiqing Luo's side. No wonder she was its master. Chapter 2502. Chi-Chi. Yiqing Luo hugged Chi-Chi's head. That plump tiger head, Yiqing Luo couldn't even hug it with one hand. But Yiqing Luo's 5 fingers grabbed onto Chi-Chi's fur as she raised her brows. Little Chi-Chi, who is your master? Chiao Jiao asked you to throw me away and you threw me away just like that? When the last word was spat out, Yiqing Luo intentionally emphasized the ending. Chi-Chi's huge tiger body shuddered slightly. The huge tiger eyes immediately revealed an aggrieved expression. Master? Sob sob sob, Chi-Chi didn't do it on purpose. Her childish voice was filled with a sense of grievance. Saying that, it even used its head and rubbed against Yiqing Luo's body bit by bit. A tiger as huge as a mountain was acting cute in front of her. What kind of feeling was that? Yiqing Luo expressed that she had raised a big cat. Speak. Why must you listen to Chiao Jiao? Yiqing Luo's heart was softened by Chi-Chi's cute actions, but she pretended to be angry on the surface. This little fellow obviously knew what this place was and what the opportunity that Xian mentioned was. But it refused to say anything. Not letting this little fellow explain anything. Even her own war pet, her own little fellow, could do little tricks behind her back. Was she still considered as a qualified master? As expected, when it saw Yiqing Luo's straight face, Chi-Chi immediately cried and acted cute, because Chi-Chi wants to help master. Under Chi-Chi's childish explanation, Yiqing Luo finally understood. This sealed ground, what kind of place was it? She finally understood. Why Dmo Xian said that this was her opportunity. And the reason why Chi-Chi and Chi-Yen would appear here. So, the Miao tribe's forbidden land was sealed. It was one of the 4 sacred beasts. Black Tortoise. Just earlier, after Chi-Chi and Black Tortoise had a short contact, Chi-Chi then understood the reason why the Black Tortoise was sealed here. 700 years ago, Black Tortoise, which had been in deep slumber, was awakened by a summon near the Miao tribe village. A sacred beast which could summon the wind and rain. In this lower plane there was no master to control them. Since it did not differentiate between good and evil, it naturally did as it pleased without any apprehension and stirred up a storm in the Nirvana realm. However, even though it was one of the 4 great divine beasts, it had been in a deep slumber for too long after all. The spiritual energy in the lower realm was not as pure as it used to be. The Black Tortoise consumed too much energy. When he couldn't replenish his spiritual qi. At that time, the holy maiden of the Miaogu clan had used a forbidden art of the Miaogu clan to seal the Black Tortoise under the Miaogu clan. She had left behind an ancestral teaching to suppress the seal for generations to come. And this time, the arrival of Yiqing Luo and the 2 Bu elders coincidentally unlocked the Black Tortoise's seal. Yiqing Luo and the 2 sacred beasts had already signed the contract. Her blood could naturally cause the Black Tortoise to react. That drop of blood from Yiqing Luo had unlocked the first layer of Black Tortoise's seal. Then, the 2 elders of the Bu family used their true feelings as a sacrifice to open the second layer of the seal. He successfully awakened the Black Tortoise. And because of that, there was that scene earlier. So to say, you listened to Chiao Jiao's words and threw me down, just to let me contract the Black Tortoise? Yiqing Luo understood the meaning behind Chi-Chi's words. Chi-Chi valued her just like how she valued Chi-Chi. Chapter 2503. I'm not contracting the Black Tortoise either, Chi-Chi mumbled softly. The Black Tortoise's temperament is different from ours. It doesn't differentiate between good and evil. Everything depends on its own preferences. Yiqing Luo pinched Chi-Chi's ears. In that case, you're not sure if Black Tortoise will accept me, so you threw me down? Chi-Chi blinked its intelligent tiger eyes. Chi-Chi believes that as long as it's master, he will definitely be able to find the Black Tortoise. Saying that, he carefully sized up Yiqing Luo's expression. Seeing that Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change, he hurriedly added another sentence. Master can even contract that bad-tempered little Chi-Chi, so it shouldn't be a problem for you to contract Black Tortoise. After the little guy woke up, his ability to act coquettishly and flatter had increased. Yiqing Luo pinched Chi-Chi's face and didn't continue to argue with Chi-Chi over this point. Instead, she grasped the main point of Chi-Chi's words and asked, "You said you found the Black Tortoise. Found what do you mean?" Chi-Chi said that she had succeeded. But Yiqing Luo didn't sense the presence of the Black Tortoise in the pet space. Furthermore, she could not even sense the Black Tortoise's aura. Therefore, she did not contract the Black Tortoise. Only half of the Black Tortoise's soul is sealed here. Chi-Chi lowered her head and said softly, "Half a soul?" Yiqing Luo suddenly recalled that when she was in a daze, she saw a smear of jade-green fog. Could that be the Black Tortoise's soul? Chi-Chi seemed to have seen through the doubt in Yiqing Luo's heart as it nodded its big tiger head. Black Tortoise has accepted Master, that's why it willingly sent its soul into Master's profound heart jade. It was no wonder that after the green mist entered her heart, she felt that powerful force almost burst her meridians. She was promoted, it was also because he had absorbed the Black Tortoise's soul. Master can first use the profound heart jade to nurture the Black Tortoise's soul. When you find the other half of the Black Tortoise's soul, Master can form a contract with the Black Tortoise. There was a trace of excitement in Chi-Chi's voice. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and gently pressed on the area where her heart was. He sensed the extremely quiet soul within the profound heart jade. She sighed. "I see." Moreover, Black Tortoise was Chi-Chi and Chi-Yan's brother. Seeing how excited Chi-Chi was, it was as if she was about to meet her best friend. Yiqing Luo couldn't bear to reject him. What's more, she had contracted the black tortoise, which was beneficial to her. However, Yiqing Luo recalled that Jun Qingwu had once told her about another way to head to the upper realm. Now the three sacred beasts were all in her hands. In other words, even the heavens were helping her make the choice. He helped her choose, to collect the sacred beast beads and open the path to the upper realm. Master, the black tortoise's soul is already in your profound heart jade. The Miao tribe's seal has also been broken. Very soon this place will collapse. Chi-Chi will bring you out of here first. Chi-Chi used her head to nudge Yiqing Luo and reminded her. Yiqing Luo nodded and quickly leaped onto Chi-Chi's back. Rumble. Almost at the same time, a violent earthquake broke out in the surroundings. Countless explosions rang out. Chi-Chi's four limbs moved as it sprinted upwards. Boom. Yiqing Luo felt something collapsing behind her. For some reason she turned around to take a look. Chapter 2504. That stone statue was extremely huge. It was at least one size bigger than Chi-Chi's current form. It looked like a huge tortoise. Its entire body was wrapped in a hard tortoise shell. The most horrifying thing was, on that huge tortoise shell there were two snake-like and dragon-like things. Boom boom, it was another earth-shattering sound. The stone statue broke apart and fell down. Yiqing Luo saw it. That pair of jade-green eyes was especially bright in the jade light. Bam! Yiqing Luo only felt a gust of bone-piercing wind brushing past her face. The body that was sitting on Chi-Chi's back was flung out violently. Qing Luo. A few familiar voices rang in her ears. Immediately she saw a slender figure flying over and catching her steadily. The impact of Yiqing Luo being flung out was rather strong. Both of them retreated more than 10 meters before they managed to stabilize themselves. Yiqing Luo felt a little dizzy as she shook her head and raised her eyes. She met with a cold and beautiful face. Little Wu Wu. Yiqing Luo smiled. Jun Qingwu's face was icy cold as she let go of her hand. Steady yourself. Yiqing Luo felt that this attitude was like a domineering CEO. Her feet were standing on the ground. She could feel the real feeling of standing on the ground. Yiqing Luo finally had a feeling of being revived. After she stabilized herself, she immediately sensed Chi-Chi's direction. Chi-Chi, are you all right? The moment they came out of the Forbidden Grounds, the Forbidden Grounds exploded automatically. This caused a human and a beast to be flung out. Chi-Chi's body was huge and the sacred beast's agility was hundreds of times stronger than a human. After it was flung out, it quickly stabilized itself. Just as it was about to catch its master. But it discovered its master was being carried in the arms of a beautiful sister. Chi-Chi blinked its tiger eyes in shock. Master is with the beautiful sister behind the overlord's back. Yiqing Luo, huh? Jun Qingwu. The surrounding crowd. Ah. Chi-Chi, go back and have a good rest. Yiqing Luo felt that the little fellow's words were too shocking and decisively recalled Chi-Chi back into the pet space. Not long after Chi-Chi woke up, he had also spent too much energy in the forbidden area. He returned to the pet space. Yan Xiaoyi and the others crowded around. Qing Luo, are you all right? The few of them surrounded Yiqing Luo and sized her up. After confirming that there were no wounds on Yiqing Luo's body, he was finally relieved. Outside of the crowd, Gui Wu glanced at Yiqing Luo indifferently. Promoted? Does this mean that you've already gotten the opportunity that Dizun mentioned? Gui Wu's words. Only then did everyone realize. Yiqing Luo's entire temperament had another layer of rebirth. That pair of charming eyes was still clear and enchanting, but there was a trace of unfathomable brilliance in them. Yan Xiaoyi was so shocked that her mouth was agape. My God, Qing Luo, you're simply too abnormal. How long has it been? You've advanced a grade again? One must know that Yiqing Luo was a sky-profound cultivator. The sky-profound realm could be said to be the god realm in everyone's mind. Advancing to the next rank was much more difficult than advancing to the next rank. Yiqing Luo actually advanced again. This group of ordinary people had been devastated to the point that they had nothing left to live for. And Yiqing Luo nodded and raised her eyes to look at the indifferent Gui Wu. I have something to ask you. Gui Wu saw through Yiqing Luo's thoughts. Want to ask about the Overlord. Chapter 2505. Yiqing Luo had always known that Gui Wu was absolutely not just a martial arts fanatic from the lower realm, or a grandmaster who guided his students. Diamo Xian was mentioned. Even Yan Xiaoyi fell silent. Yiqing Luo saw that the few of them didn't look too good. Her heart sank. Suddenly he recalled the scene of Dmo Xian disappearing in the Forbidden Land. Her heart tightened, and when she opened her mouth again, her voice was a bit hoarse. Did something happen to Xian? Otherwise, Xian would not have left her at that time. When Xian was in the Forbidden Land, something was obviously wrong. His entire person was like a gust of wind, disappearing into thin air. Something did happen. Gui Wu did not beat around the bush. Yiqing Luo's heart thumped fiercely as her complexion instantly turned pale and her petite body unconsciously swayed. What nonsense are you talking about? The Overlord's brother-in-law is not in trouble. Kitty Li couldn't bear to see her own sister in such a state as she immediately struggled out of Zhou Mo's restraint, wanting to comfort Yiqing Luo. Zhou Mo tightened his arms, narrowed his phoenix eyes and whispered in her ear, "Little wild cat, be good and let me hold you. Don't talk, okay?" The rising tone of his voice had a devilish charm to it. Kitty Li's ears were sensitive, so when Zhou Mo's warm breath brushed past her, her delicate body immediately went soft. She blushed and hit his arm. "Frivolous man, let go of Kitty Li. Kitty wants to accompany big sister." "You said it yourself. Dizun is fine. Won't she be more worried that something has happened to Dizun if you're in such a hurry to accompany her?" Zhou Mo raised his eyebrows. Kitty Li was stunned and bit her lower lip. In the end, she stopped struggling and looked at Yiqing Luo seriously. "Sister, Overlord brother-in-law is really fine, he wouldn't bear to make you unhappy." Yiqing Luo closed her eyes and waved away the image of Dmo Xian's disappearance that kept replaying in her mind. "Master Gui Wu, the Xian who accompanied me in the forbidden area just now, isn't the real Xian, right?" Actually, when Dmo Xian disappeared, she already had a trace of conjecture in her heart. However, she deliberately buried all her guesses in the bottom of her heart and pretended not to notice. "Yes." Gui Wu's reply was straightforward, concise and comprehensive, as he calmly told her about the matter regarding Dmo Xian and his doppelganger. Yiqing Luo quietly listened to Gui Wu's words. The expression on his face was very calm. However, every single word that Gui Wu said, every single sentence, Yiqing Luo's heart felt as though it was pricked by needles. He actually left a trace of his consciousness in her pendant to protect her. From start to finish, he had never left her side. Compared to the Nirvana realm, the place he was heading to was the upper realm. It was such a dangerous place. He was still taking such risks. Just to protect her. This man, why did he always do things that made her both angry and touched? Gui Wu had said it before. In the forbidden area, Dmo Xian had already exhausted a lot of energy to contend against the seal power set by the Miao tribe's ancestors. Then, in order to protect her, he safely entered the sealed land. Moreover, it consumed a large amount of his own strength. In other words, when Dmo Xian disappeared at the end, this was the last trace of his remaining consciousness and strength in her. Ever since they entered the seal, Dmo Xian had been using his strength to block the swallowing of the seal's power. He knew that with Chi-Chi and Chien around, Black Tortoise's seal power could not hurt him at all. He had exhausted all his strength. Chapter 2506. That silly man just wanted to spend more time with her. The doppelganger was damaged. His body would also be damaged. All of his power was spent on the seal. Would his real body in the upper realm affect the things he handled in the upper realm? The more Yiqing Luo thought, the more her heart trembled. Qing Luo? Yan Xiaoyi saw Yiqing Luo not speaking for a long time, and her pair of eyes had already turned red as she called out softly with heartache. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes as she pushed back the sour feeling in her nose. "I'm fine. If I were him, I would also do the same." That was right, if it was her. In order to spend more time with Dmo Xian, she would make the same choice. She understood Dmo Xian's choice. It was just that her heart ached for him. Her heart ached, and she missed him. "Let's leave this place first. This is the Miao tribe after all." Xiao Jin looked around. Perhaps it was because this was a forbidden place for the Miao tribe. Such a huge commotion had occurred. Not a single Miao tribesman came over. "I'm not leaving," Miao Yi said in a choked voice. She clenched her fists tightly, her bloodshot eyes burning with the flames of hatred. "I want to kill Miao Yixiong and avenge the people of Bu village." Yiqing Luo thought of those two old men. In order not to drag her down, they resolutely chose to leap into the seal. She took a deep breath and looked at Miao Yi calmly. "If you want revenge, you have to live." Miao Yi's body trembled and tensed up. "Let's go." After Yiqing Luo finished her words, she didn't wait for the others to react as she walked towards the exit of the Miao tribe. Yan Xiaoyi and the rest followed a few steps forward. He couldn't help but turn his head to look at Miao Yi, who was standing on the spot with her fists tightly clenched. He opened his mouth a few times wanting to call out to Miao Yi, but looking at Yi Qing Luo's departing back view without hesitation. In the end, he didn't say anything and turned around to chase after Yi Qing Luo's footsteps. After walking for about the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, the sound of hurried footsteps came from behind them. Very quickly that man chased up to Yi Qing Luo and opened up his arms, blocking her path. "Big Sister Luo, I beg you. Avenge the people of the Bu family village." Miao Yi's bloodshot eyes stared at Yi Qing Luo without blinking. Sister Luo was right. If he wanted revenge he had to stay alive. With her own strength, it was impossible for her to kill the Miao tribe leader. He would only be throwing his life away. She knew, the only person who could help her was Sister Luo. Yi Qing Luo stopped in her tracks as her gaze fell firmly onto Miao Yi. Her gaze was like a torch, as if she could see through Miao Yi's soul. Miao Yi felt a little uneasy under his gaze. After a long time he finally heard Yi Qing Luo opening her mouth. "Even if you don't mention it, I will take revenge for the Bu family village." Miao Yi's outstretched arms stiffened. Then he slowly lowered his head. "No matter what. Thank you, don't you want to take revenge personally?" Yi Qing Luo lowered her eyes and looked at the depressed girl. Miao Yi's eyes brightened but soon dimmed again. I want to, but I can't. There's no such thing as whether I can or cannot, only whether I want to or not." Yi Qing Luo interrupted Miao Yi's words. "As long as you want, I can let you take revenge personally and let the Miao Gu family be consigned to eternal damnation. But I have a request." Hearing Yi Qing Luo's words, the light in Miao Yi's eyes grew brighter. She raised her head and her eyes were filled with determination. "As long as I can take revenge personally, I will agree to anything you say." Chapter 2507. The group returned to the Peach Blossom restaurant. Seeing so many old friends in the Heavenly Academy, Peach was naturally excited and arranged a good room for everyone. Yi Qing Luo also found out from the few of them what happened in the Heavenly Academy after she left. Everything was as she had expected. The headmaster of the Heavenly Profound Academy was removed from his position. Furthermore, he was forcefully sent to the South Wave continent by the headquarters and imprisoned in the headquarters to suffer. Regarding this news, Yi Qing Luo wasn't surprised. Before she left, she had specially set up a trap for the Heavenly Dean. What the Heavenly Dean cared about the most was his Dean position. The most severe punishment for Dean Xian wasn't to let him die. Instead, she wanted him to lose everything that he had worked so hard to obtain. She made use of the incident at Shangshuan Temple to let Yun Xiang and Si Yen Mu collude to kill the Dean. She appeared to save Dean Xian and used him to leave Yun Xiang first. Before he left, he instructed Yen Xiaoyi to divulge the matter of the Heavenly Dean colluding with the Dark Forces. 1 or 2 elite students would go missing in the Heavenly Academy every month. The reason why the Heavenly Academy would force students to leave school for 3 days every month. The trip to the South Wave continent and the Blazing Nest were all part of the Dean's and the Dark Forces' plan to undo the King of Darkness seal. No matter how secretive the Heavenly Dean was in the past, there would still be some slip-ups. Coupled with some evidence which Yi Qing Luo had intentionally forged. Truth and falsehood, the Heavenly Dean would definitely be destroyed. Then, has the headquarters mentioned who the newly appointed Heavenly Profound Principal is? Yi Qing Luo asked with a smile after she heard everyone's words. Yen Xiaoyi's face was full of smiles as she blinked her eyes mysteriously. Guess. It's definitely someone you wouldn't expect. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyebrows and confidently said, It's Master Guiyu. Yen Xiaoyi's eyes widened as she covered her eyes and fell into Qiao Jin's embrace. Can't you let me play mysterious for once? How did you know it was Dean Guiyu? Yi Qing Luo smiled. Ever since she set up a trap to destroy the Heavenly Dean. She had already predicted that the next president of the Heavenly Academy would be Old Man Guiyu. Yi Qing Luo felt it. Old Man Guiyu had special feelings towards the Heavenly Academy. Who was Guiyu? The Heavenly Academy would continue to be at its peak and sit firmly on the honor of being the best academy. Yes, the new dean is Dean Guiyu. Yen Xiaoyi looked at Yi Qing Luo's unfathomable smile as she rubbed her head against Qiao Jin's shoulder with a bored look. The main courtyard has also agreed to let Dean Guiyu take on the role of Heavenly Dean, and the Dean's certificate has also been handed over to Dean Guiyu. Qiao Jin stroked her head, his eyes filled with love. Following that, his gaze slowly shifted onto Yi Qing Luo. I heard that Dean Guiyu and the previous dean were best friends. Did you know about this long ago? Otherwise, how could Yi Qing Luo be so sure that old man Guiyu would take over the position of the former director? Yi Qing Luo nodded. Ever since teacher Guiyu came to our devil class as a teacher, I already knew that there was a deep past between teacher Guiyu and the previous director. Yes. I heard that when Dean Guiyu wanted to be a teacher in the devil class, the previous dean refused to let go no matter what. In the end, it was Dean Guiyu who agreed to do something. Dean Guiyu almost lost his life, and the previous dean then allowed Dean Guiyu to be a teacher in the devil class. Chapter 2508. Yi Qing Luo was slightly stunned. She knew that old man Guiyu was here to teach devil class. He must have made some sort of deal with the former dean. But he didn't expect, he had almost lost his life. Thinking of old man Guiyu's crazed face, her heart softened. Teacher Guiyu being the dean is the best outcome. Yi Qing Luo's brows curved. After the matters in Northern Tide Continent are settled, we will return to the academy and celebrate with teacher Guiyu. Yan Xiaoyi grunted heavily. This time, Slut Jean, Shadow and I came to the Northern Waves Continent, firstly to see you and secondly, to represent the Heavenly Academy to attend the birthday banquet of the Qinghua sect lord. Yi Qing Luo roughly guessed the reason why they would appear here. Just hearing it from their own mouths, she was still a little surprised. After all, Yan Xiaoyi and the rest were merely students of the Heavenly Academy. In terms of qualifications and status, it was not the turn of the devil class students to be the representatives of the Heavenly Academy. With old man Guiyu's habit of protecting his children, it didn't matter if the devil class students were qualified or not. If old man Guiyu said so, no one would dare to object. Old man Guiyu must be worried that she would not be able to lead a stable life in the North Wave Continent. He also knew that the students of the devil class all missed him. That was why he had to withstand the pressure from the entire academy to appoint Yan Xiaoyi and the rest as the representatives of the Heavenly Academy. Yan Xiaoyi noticed her gaze and replied, Master Guiwu and young Master Emo are here to participate in the Qinghua sect master's birthday banquet. Guiyu was worried that the three of us might encounter danger, so he asked Master Guiwu and young Master Emo to accompany us. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows as her gaze turned into a teasing one. If I remember correctly, as a martial arts fanatic, ghost martial artist would never participate in any birthday banquets or grand ceremonies. Even if the sect master personally invited him, the ghost martial artist might not give him any face. This time, he traveled thousands of miles from the South Continent to the West Continent, and from the West Continent all the way to the North Continent. She looked at Zhou Mo with a teasing gaze. Guiwu had definitely followed Zhou Mo here. As for Zhou Mo, clearly they were here for Kitty Li. In order to chase after his wife, Zhou Mo was really going all out. In order to support his brother. The ghost martial artist was quite strenuous. 3 days later, on the birthday of the Qinghua sect master. Since last night, the city had been bustling with noise and excitement. The crackling of the firecrackers never stopped. There were also all kinds of festive bands roaming the streets and alleys. The city was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. Melodious music was being played and the atmosphere was joyous. The commoners had filled up the streets and alleys of the Qinghua sect, and they were all talking about the deeds of the Qinghua sect master. Of course, this didn't mean that the Qinghua sect was a living bodhisattva in the eyes of the commoners. But because, today, all the nobles and officials from different continents would gather in the Joy City. They naturally wanted to let the people of the other continents see the respect they had for the Qinghua sect. Every commoner had the heart to protect their own continent. They were all unwilling to let the people of other continents look down on their own continent. As a result, the citizens cheered even more fervently. Of course, there were also people from other continents who came to the Northern Wave Continent to attend the birthday banquet. He had also put in a lot of effort to highlight the prosperity of his continent. On the streets, all kinds of luxurious carriages and top-grade horses galloped about. Chapter 2509. Although the street was crowded, people still lined up in an orderly manner. After all, everyone wanted to maintain their elegance and quality so as not to be criticized. Giving way to each other was courteous and respectful. However, such a peaceful appearance. It was broken after the arrival of a group of people. There were about 30 people in that group of people. The guards were dressed in glittering golden clothes, and the weapons in their hands were so sharp that they could blind people's eyes. Surrounded in the middle by the guards was an extremely luxurious and noble carriage. Above the carriage there was a white veil. In the haze there was an enchanting figure. This group of people walked extremely proudly, with their heads held high and their chests puffed out, and their steps were powerful. If it was any other time. From the looks of it, this pair of people had a mighty aura that made people envious. But on this occasion, they were all high-ranking officials and dignitaries from various continents. Their attitude was simply a joke. This was especially true for this group of people. They were charging forward without any misgivings at all. They had a posture of, "I am opening this road, everyone get out of the way." Although the distinguished guests from other continents were unhappy, in order to maintain their demeanor, they naturally took the initiative to make way. But this behavior of maintaining demeanor, in the eyes of this group of people, everyone was afraid of their power. The common people already couldn't help but whisper to each other, "What kind of big shot is that? They look very arrogant." That's right, why are so many distinguished guests making way for them? Some people guessed the identity of that group of people. Some people sneered disdainfully. What big shot? I think they don't know what is polite at all. That's right, putting on an air of supremacy, they really think they are big shots. This extravagant and exaggerated posture, no matter how you look at it, it's just pretentious. Soon, someone recognized the flag at the forefront of that group of people. Look, that's the symbol of the East Continent's royal family. This group of people is the representative of the East Continent's royal family. So it was the royal family, no wonder they were so arrogant. But this was the North Continent. Moreover, many royal family representatives from other continents had also come. He had never seen any other royal family being so rude, had he? Furthermore, the representatives of the East Wave Continent's Jade Dome sect were still obediently lining up and entering the Joy Clan Palace in an orderly manner. What right did the royal family have to be so arrogant? However, today the Qinghua city was bustling with activity. The voices of the commoners were drowned out by the music. Lan Ling Nua, who was sitting in the carriage with a graceful posture, did not hear the criticism of the commoners outside. Through the white veil, she could see countless high officials and dignitaries making way for her. Some of the commoners were even talking about the East Wave imperial family. Lan Ling Nua thought that it was because the power of the East Wave continent was overwhelming and everyone was afraid of the Lan family. In his heart he felt more and more pleased. Lan Ling Nua had grown up in a situation where everyone doted on her. Especially her beautiful face. Her life on the East Wave continent was smooth sailing. Even if he went to the West continent and entered the academy. She was also a fairy who was held in the palm of others' hands and respected. Because of this, Lan Ling Nua didn't think that these people were being courteous to her because of courtesy, but because they were afraid of her identity as the East Wave's imperial family. Little did she know. Among the many distinguished guests. Chapter 25:10. Yi Qing Luo and the rest were also heading to Qinghua clan's birthday banquet today. A line of 10 people sat in a spacious carriage. Qiao Jin was chased outside the carriage to drive. They were more low-key and under the contrast of the other luxurious carriages, their carriage looked very ordinary. Because of that, no other guests in the queue came forward to strike up a conversation. They were happy to be idle. Yi Qing Luo lifted the curtains and took a look at the carriages and carriages beside the carriage. Truly worthy of being one of the 4 major sects, Qinyu sect. Just a birthday banquet and so many people are attending. I wonder if the Qinyu sect's manor can accommodate so many people. Looking at the sea of people, Lin Fan felt a chill down his spine. Yi Qing Luo expressed that Yi Tianquang had really played 3 Springs sect to waste. They were obviously one of the 4 major sections. Although Yi Tianquang's birthday banquet was also very lively, but those who came were all small families and couldn't be seen in public. Without comparison there would be no harm. In future, Feng Yu's birthday banquet will be even more lively than Qinghua clan's. Yan Xiaoyi also stuck her head out to look outside the curtain. I don't wish. Yi Qing Luo hurriedly shook her head. Yi Feng Yu's birthday banquet was so extravagant. As the elder sister, wouldn't she be exhausted to death? Yan Xiaoyi burst out laughing. Outside the curtain, the carriages were crowded and it was too dangerous to stick her head out. Qiao Jin pressed Yan Xiaoyi's head and pushed her back into the carriage. In order to prevent Yan Xiaoyi from doing anything dangerous, he started a topic. You're attending Qinghua clan's sovereign's birthday banquet because the person who helped class monitor to suppress the poison is also there? Based on Yi Qing Luo's character, this kind of occasion was troublesome. And Yi Qing Luo's changed face had become famous on the first day she arrived in the northern continent. If she appeared at the sovereign's birthday banquet, she would probably stir up another storm. Most importantly, For this birthday banquet, the Miaogu family would also be there. Yi Qing Luo should take this opportunity to overturn the Miaogu family. They didn't expect Yi Qing Luo to follow them to the birthday banquet. They had no choice but to admit that Devil Class's bunch of brothers had interacted with Yi Qing Luo for a long time, so they had more or less figured out Yi Qing Luo's character. Eldest young Miss Miao has been poisoned by me and needs my antidote. I think today she will take the initiative to beg me. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curved upwards as a crafty cold arc flashed past her eyes. Eldest young Miss Miao is able to suppress the class monitor's venom? Qiao Ji knew that Yi Qing Luo definitely had an ulterior motive for attending the birthday banquet. It seemed like the sect leader of the Qinghua sect's birthday banquet was going to be spectacular. Yi Qing Luo shrugged her shoulders. I don't know about venomous spells, so I don't know how good eldest Miss Miao's venomous spells are, but... She paused, and a meaningful look appeared on her face. Then, his gaze fell on Miao Yi, who was sitting in the corner with her head lowered and in a daze. The few of them followed Yi Qing Luo's line of sight. Miao Yi was immersed in her own thoughts and did not notice. Shen Gui, who had been sticking close to Miao Yi, raised his head. The skinny young man looked at them with clear eyes. The few of them smiled at Shen Gui and shifted their gazes away, continuing their conversation. Qiao Jin and the others weren't familiar with Miao Yi and Shen Gui, but seeing Yi Qing Luo chatting in front of them without any intention to avoid arousing suspicion. So they didn't treat the both of them as outsiders. The few of them were chatting idly. Suddenly the carriage, which was moving at a tortoise speed, shook, as though it had been hit by something fiercely. The few people in the carriage swayed from the impact. Chapter 25:11. Shen Gui immediately hugged Miao Yi's waist as his face flushed red. Second? Yi, are you alright? Miao Yi shook her head as she raised her head in a daze. What's the matter? Did you collide with someone else's carriage? Qiao Jin's icy cold voice was heard from outside the carriage. The troublemakers are here. Looking for trouble? Yi Qing Luo's brows rose when she heard that. We're so low profile and there's still someone looking for trouble? Yi Qing Luo's voice had just ended. An ear-piercing roar was heard from outside the noisy carriage. How dare you? Do you know who's in the carriage? How dare you block the way? This guard's words were extremely arrogant. Qiao Jin scoffed as his voice was filled with coldness. No matter what your identity is in this Qinghua city, you're just guests attending Qinghua sect's sovereign's birthday banquet. Moreover, you were the one who barged in and knocked into my carriage. I didn't ask you for compensation, but you're biting me instead. Speaking of this, Qiao Jin's tone became even more disdainful. I'm rather curious, what's your identity to have such a big face? You. How dare you? The leading guard's face flushed red as he raised the long spear in his hand and pointed it at Qiao Jin. Barging in all the way. All the officials and dignitaries automatically gave way to them. The guard's self-confidence started to swell. Especially when they saw such an ordinary carriage, they treated it as some small powerhouse who came over to freeload. What's the matter? Lan Ling Nua's impatient voice was heard from the carriage. Haven't you already submitted the invitation, still not going in? Regent Princess, we met a small powerhouse who not only collided with you, they even blocked the entrance of Qinghua sect, not allowing you to enter. That guard complained at the top of his voice. Lan Ling Nua's beautiful face surfaced a sliver of anger when she heard that. Along the way, everyone was polite to her. East Lan Regent Princess. A small powerhouse actually dared to block her way? Lan Ling Nua looked at the bustling guests and commoners through the white veil. Her beautiful eyes suddenly flashed a glint of brilliance. That's right, now was the time when it was bustling with noise and attention. She revealed herself at this moment. Let the people from all the continents see her beauty. She would definitely attract countless men who would go crazy for her. As she thought this, Lan Ling Nua adjusted her state of mind in the carriage. She stood up and lifted the white veil. The luxurious 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix robe accentuated Lan Ling Nua's graceful figure. Her makeup was exquisite, and she was extremely beautiful. It was indeed an extremely beautiful face. His appearance had indeed attracted the attention of many distinguished guests and commoners. However, the moment Lan Ling Nua opened her mouth, she destroyed her eyebrows. Where did this small force come from? Don't they understand the principle of first come, first served? It's no wonder that they're just a small force that can't even be shown in public. Lan Ling Nua had a haughty look as she glanced at the extremely ordinary carriage with disdain. His heart also relaxed. The disdain in his eyes deepened. Riding this kind of carriage to attend the Chinua sect master's birthday banquet? It was obvious that he was a small fry with no power or status. How dare he block the path of the dignified Eastern Wave County Lord? However, Chapter 25:12. With that in mind, Lan Ling Nua's lips curled up into a smile. She smiled sweetly and said, I am not a barbaric person. Seeing that you are only a small force and don't know the rules, I will not argue with you. You have offended me. She paused for a moment, then continued with a smile. What about you? All of you get out of the car. Kneel down and kowtow in front of me to apologize. I'll forgive you for your rudeness this time. As Lan Ling Nua spoke, she couldn't help but praise herself for being so kind-hearted. She wanted everyone to think that she, the Princess of East Wave, was not only beautiful, but also kind-hearted. She wouldn't hold it against such lowly people. However, she didn't know that her current behavior had already aroused the disgust of most people. Those who had an invitation and could attend the birthday banquet of the Chinua sect leader were either rich or powerful. They were all people of the upper class. How could a little girl like Lan Ling Nua be able to fool them? Look at Lan Ling Nua, who was pretending to be gentle. She couldn't hide the arrogance and haughtiness in her eyes. It didn't match the fake gentleness she was pretending to be. Especially since Lan Ling Nua had appeared, she had been arrogant, despotic, and arrogant. She treated everyone's modesty as a matter of course. She was really annoying. She didn't know why the ruler of the East Wave continent would send such a useless princess to represent the royal family. Wasn't she afraid of losing the face of the East Wave continent's royal family? Xiao Jin frowned. He clearly wasn't in the mood to argue with Lan Ling Nua. A good dog doesn't block the way. Get lost. Lan Ling Nua's arrogant face froze. She was already trying to be kind and forgiving of these lowly forces. This lowly driver actually called her a dog and even shouted at her? Since young, where wasn't she, Lan Ling Nua, pampered at the top of everyone's hearts? Lan Ling Nua was so angry that her face darkened. She couldn't maintain her dignified and gentle expression any longer. How dare you? You're just a driver, how dare you speak to me like this? Call your master out for me. The guards behind her saw that their princess was angry. Immediately, 2 strong guards walked quickly toward the carriage. The people in the carriage, get down from our princess. One of the guards stepped onto the carriage and pulled open the curtains. He was about to reach out and drag the person away. Xiao Jin saw that the guard was using brute force and did not stop him. Instead, he dodged to the side. Lan Ling Nua couldn't help but laugh out loud. A cowardly groom. After being frightened, all his temper was gone. Just a moment ago, he even dared to insult her, the Eastern Wave County Lord. After she taught the owner of the carriage a lesson, she would also teach the coachman a lesson. Ah! A blood-curdling scream rang out. A figure flew out from the ordinary carriage. Most of the distinguished guests who were spectating were profound practitioners or had countless experts by their side. The moment his figure flew out, he immediately moved away. The figure landed heavily on the ground. Everyone fixed their eyes on him and saw that he was actually a guard dressed in a dazzling outfit. Lan Ling Nua was stunned. She didn't expect that the person in the carriage would dare to attack her after knowing her identity. He was so angry that his face turned pale. He immediately ordered the other guards to use brute force to destroy the carriage. It was very crowded. All the distinguished guests were in a hurry to enter the Joy clan residence and take their seats. They weren't in the mood to watch the unreasonable pestering of the Eastern Wave County Lord. Especially now, the Eastern Wave County Lord and the owner of the carriage were blocking the entrance of the Joy clan residence. Lan Ling Nua didn't have any intention of stopping. Instead, she became more and more aggressive. Chapter 25:13. Don't block the entrance of the Chinua clan if you have any grudges, okay? If you don't want to go in, then don't hold everyone back. There are still many people waiting in line. As soon as the complaint was voiced, it was immediately echoed by the others. They already knew about the East Wave County Lord's arrogance and disrespect, so they were not interested in knowing more about it. They came all the way to the North Wave continent to build a relationship with the Chinua clan. They were not interested in watching the little girls show off. There were even some honored guests who were resentful because Lan Ling Nua had cut the queue and barged through the crowd, and they couldn't help but mock her. Today is the birthday of the sect master of the Chinua clan. East Wave County Lord, is this the attitude of the East Wave continent's royal family toward the sect master of the Chinua clan? Or, The teachings that the East Wave County Lord has received since she was young is that the East Wave continent is the only one in the Nirvana realm. Every word and sentence caused the forces from the East Wave continent to break out in a cold sweat. The representatives of the forces from the East Wave continent wanted to disassociate themselves. However, Lan Ling Nua frowned her beautiful face and looked at the surrounding guests with an aggrieved expression. It was this lowly force that offended me. It's their fault. Why do you keep blaming me? As she spoke, her eyes turned red. He had a pitiful look on his face. This expression, coupled with her exquisite and beautiful face, was indeed an alluring stunner. It could indeed arouse the protective desire of men. However, Lan Ling Nua was still trying to use her beauty to absolve herself from the blame at this critical juncture when she had incurred the wrath of the public. That would be a big mistake. Even if some forces were attracted by Lan Ling Nua's beauty, think about her arrogant personality. Look at her pitiful appearance now. No matter how you looked at it, it felt very awkward. Especially since Lan Ling Nua's actions had offended a large number of noble ladies. These noble ladies had grown up in the backyard since young. She kept saying one thing after another. Every word she said made Lan Ling Nua so ashamed that she could not refute. In an instant, Lan Ling Nua's face turned red from the criticism of those noble ladies and ladies, as well as the guests who were already extremely impatient. Lan Ling Nua had never suffered such humiliation. Just as Lan Ling Nua was about to explode in anger, a small figure, under the protection of a group of well-trained guards, walked over quickly. Sister Nua, what happened? When Lan Ling Nua saw her, it was as if she had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. Lingling, you must seek justice for me. Someone dares to be so arrogant in your Northern Tide Continent's territory. They simply don't respect your Northern Tide Continent. Lan Ling Nua's face turned red, and she was so angry that her eyes turned red. When Xia Lingling saw this, she felt that Lan Ling Nua was so angry that she was crying. He recalled the scene of Lan Ling Nua saving him at the Peach Blossom restaurant. Xia Lingling immediately held Lan Ling Nua's hand tightly. This time, it was her turn to protect elder sister Nua. She raised her head, and her small face was filled with displeasure as she glared at those people. You are all reputable people from various continents. Don't you feel embarrassed bullying a little girl like this? Everyone had been waiting at the entrance of Qinghua clan residence for a long time. They were blocked at the entrance and they could only watch as Lan Ling Nua threw a tantrum. They had long suppressed their displeasure in their hearts. Chapter 25:14. First, it was the princess of the East Billow region who was arrogant and rude in front of them. Seeing that she was just a little girl, he maintained the attitude that it wasn't appropriate for her to cause trouble on the birthday of the Qinghua sect master. They graciously endured it. Now, Princess Balon was criticizing them? Although they were on their own continent, their status and power were indeed incomparable to the royal family. But that didn't mean that he was going to the Northern Wave continent to attend the birthday banquet. He was even bullied by the royal family of the Northern Wave continent. If this news were to spread back to his own continent, wouldn't they become the laughingstock of the Northern Wave continent? There were even people from other continents making guesses. Were the East and North continents planning to join forces and invade the other two continents? As soon as these words were spoken, it instantly caused all the distinguished guests and the surrounding commoners to panic. This was related to the peace of the Nirvana realm. The distinguished guests from the various continents immediately began to question. The representatives of the forces of the two continents in the North and East hurriedly explained. This meant that they had absolutely no intention of destroying the peace of the Nirvana realm. Lan Ling Nua realized the seriousness of the matter under everyone's pushing and shouting. Her heart trembled violently, and her little hand tightly grasped Xia Lingling's wrist. If this group of people really believed that she and Xia Lingling, as the representatives of the royal families of the two continents, had joined forces to destroy the peace of the Nirvana realm, she would be killed by these people. Furthermore, even if these people let her go back to the East Wave continent, no matter how much Uncle June spoiled her, she had caused such a huge commotion. Uncle Monarch would not let her off easily either. Lan Ling Nua knew how to make use of her beauty. In the East and West continents she was doing very well. Naturally she was not a fool. She immediately grabbed Xia Lingling's hand and said with a sobbing tone, "Lingling, you've misunderstood. It's not the lords. It's the person in the carriage." As she spoke, she put on a humiliated expression. It was clearly my East Billow tribe's invitation that was sent first, but the coachman of this carriage actually drove his horse and directly bumped into me. insisting on entering the manor before me. I couldn't take it anymore, so I argued with the coachman, but I didn't expect. Lan Ling Nua wanted to push all the blame for this farce onto the small faction in the horse carriage. In any case, it was just a lowly small force. To die for her, Princess Donglan. That would be their honor. However, he could not personally teach these lowly and rude people a lesson. Xia Lingling was startled. She immediately turned her head to look at the low-profile carriage. She frowned and lifted her foot to kick the carriage. The people inside, get out. Once again she called out to Lan Ling Nua's guards and her own guards. Push the carriage to the side for me. Don't delay everyone from attending Uncle Sect Leader's birthday. The two girls directly ignored the surrounding guests who were pointing at them and gossiping about them. All of them turned their attention to the carriage. One of them burst into tears. One of them kicked the carriage in a rude and unreasonable manner. They were all people of status and they weren't young either. At this time, it was not good to continue to harass the two little girls. In the carriage, Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes revealed a trace of teasing smile. Although Xia Lingling was only 12 or 13 years old, she was very quick-witted. He specifically asked the guards to push their carriage aside and make way for them. The distinguished guests had been delayed for a long time, and their hearts were already burning with anxiety. Chapter 25:15. Adding on to that, Xia Lingling's greeting of Uncle Sovereign had successfully intimidated them. They were here to offer their blessings to the sovereign of Qinghua sect. For Xia Lingling to address the sovereign of Qinghua sect as uncle, it was obvious that the relationship between the royal family and the sovereign of Qinghua sect was rather close. So it was even more impossible for them to haggle over anything. How could Yiqing Luo allow this show to end so easily? If she didn't teach them a lesson. They didn't know how to learn from their mistakes. This could be considered as her teaching them a lesson. Bam! Bam bam bam. Just as the two groups of guards swarmed towards the carriage trying to push the carriage away, an extremely powerful profound energy suddenly exploded from within the carriage. That force sent the guards who were caught off guard flying. One by one they fell onto the ground crying out in pain. You! How dare you lay your hands on the royal guards? Xia Lingling couldn't believe her eyes as she watched her guard fall to the ground and wail in pain. Lan Ling Nua, who was standing by the side, sobbed softly. Earlier I asked the guards to ask the owner of the carriage to alight but was thrown out by the person in the carriage. It's just a small powerhouse but they totally disregarded us. Her tone sounded as though she had suffered a huge grievance. She was obviously complaining. But she was reminding Xia Lingling. The person in the carriage was just someone from a small powerhouse. And he was extremely arrogant. When Xia Lingling heard that, she was so infuriated that her face turned red. She had always relied on her status as a little princess and was used to doing evil. The word she couldn't bear to hear was others disregarding her. This princess wants to see how powerful a small powerhouse's representative is. Xia Lingling walked directly to the side of the carriage and lifted her leg to step on the curtain. Qiao Jin, who was by the side, had long sat at the side with a, "You guys can fight however you want, I'm just here to watch the show, look." Xia Lingling shot a disdainful glance at Qiao Jin. She raised her hand and was about to lift the curtain. Her hand hadn't even been lifted. That floating curtain was pinched by a hand. That hand was as fair as jade and the fingers were long and slender like a fine jade. Even Xia Lingling, who had never done any manual labor and had meticulously taken care of her body every day, couldn't help but feel inferior when she saw her fair fingers. Then the curtain of the carriage was lifted. A rather delicate face entered Xia Lingling's sight. When Xia Lingling's gaze was fixed on that face, she suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. She suddenly screamed, "Ah!" Then, as if he had received a huge shock, he took a few steps back. He retreated. Xia Lingling's footsteps missed. His body fell backwards. Boom. Xia Lingling fell to the ground with a heavy thud. Her entire body was throbbing in pain from the fall. Even the slightest movement would cause his bones or tendons to be pulled, and he would feel a tearing pain. Young princess. The guards who had fallen to the ground were so frightened that they didn't have the mind to care about their injuries. One by one they rushed forward and shouted anxiously, "Little Commandery Princess, are you all right?" "Young princess." "Ugh." Xia Lingling was in so much pain from the fall that tears streamed down her face. With the help of the guards, she stood up, grimacing in pain and gasping. It's you? Xia Lingling stared at the carriage in disbelief. She was so angry that her body was trembling and her voice was trembling. "Bitch! It's you again? It's you again." The slender figure in red walked out of the carriage. Even if she turned into ashes. Chapter 25:16. Yiqing Luo half squatted on the carriage as she placed one hand on her knee. She tilted her head and looked at the disheveled Xia Lingling with a smile which didn't look like a smile as she burst out laughing. Yo, isn't this little Princess Beilan? Why? After failing to flaunt your prowess at the Peach Blossom restaurant, you're now running over to the entrance of Qinghua sect to play your little princess tricks? Xia Lingling's eyes were brimming with tears as her eyes shot out a ruthless glint. Her little face was twisted into a ball. You slut. You've been disrespectful to me time and time again. Do you believe that I won't ask Uncle Monarch to chop off your head? Xia Lingling's sharp voice screamed sharply. Seeing Yiqing Luo. She recalled the humiliation she had suffered in Yiqing Luo's hands previously. Her eyes were filled with fury. Guards. Capture this lowly commoner for me. The guards looked at each other in dismay. They weren't stupid. Earlier in the carriage, the force which had sent them flying. It was absolutely not a force which they could contend against. Xia Lingling was after all still young and was in a fit of anger, so how could she think of anything else? Her mind was filled with the thought of teaching Yiqing Luo a lesson. Seeing that the guards were rooted to the ground, Xia Lingling was so angry that she bared her teeth. I can't even order you around anymore, is it? Alright, you bunch of trash, wait till I return, I will ask Uncle Monarch to confiscate your family. When the honored guests heard Xia Lingling's arrogant words, their hearts involuntarily began to beat like drums. This Princess Beilan was extremely arrogant in her words. And from time to time she would bring out her Uncle Monarch. Apparently, this was the reason why Monarch Beilan gave her such arrogant confidence. Everyone's gaze unconsciously shifted to the front where the signboard of the Delight clan residence was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. It was an extremely festive sight. A royal princess dared to create such a ruckus at the entrance of Qinghua sect and even asked the monarch to stand up for her. That meant that she didn't put Qinghua sect in her eyes at all. From the bottom of her heart, she felt that even if it was Qinghua sect, they had to submit to the royal family. Little Princess Beilan was only 12 or 13 years old. For her to have such arrogant behavior and remarks, it was obvious that someone had instilled a deep-rooted idea in her. This person. Who else could it be other than Sovereign Beilan? In other words, was Monarch Beilan trying to suppress the Qinghua clan? This thought flashed across the minds of all the distinguished guests. They looked in the direction of the Joy clan residence with a meaningful and probing gaze. However, Xia Lingling, who was in a fit of anger, did not notice that her actions had already aroused many speculations. Bitch. Don't think that you can bully people just because you have a high profound rank. This is the Northern Wave continent, outside of Uncle Sect Master's residence. If you dare to cause trouble, Uncle Sect Master will never let you off. Xia Lingling's voice became softer and softer under Yiqing Luo's pair of smiling yet not smiling eyes, as her arrogance became lower and lower. At the end of her sentence, she felt her heart fill with fear, as though it was going to jump out of her throat. Her face was deathly pale, and her heart was filled with hatred. She did not want to be afraid of this slut. But unfortunately, the more she looked at this slut, the stranger she felt. Her lips trembled as she immediately sought help from Lanling Nua. Sister Nua, look at this slut, she. Lanling Nua had already squeezed into the crowd. Earlier, when the distinguished guests guessed that East Wave Continent and North Wave Continent were going to form an alliance, it gave her a reminder. Chapter 25:17. Although she despised these people who ran over to the North Continent, hoping to get in touch with the sovereign of Qinghua sect. But after all, these were all influential people from various continents. She wasn't afraid of these people. But she didn't want the East Continent to become enemies with these people. Because of this, Xia Lingling, that idiot, stood out herself, standing at the heart of the struggle. Lanling Nua decisively chose to let Xia Lingling take the blame alone. But unexpectedly, Xia Lingling actually dragged her out again. Lanling Nua's expression was steely green, but when Xia Lingling looked at her, her expression had already adjusted, with a timid look and red eyes. But in her heart, she was cursing Xia Lingling over and over again. Lingling. Lanling Nua had no choice but to walk up. Her mind was spinning quickly. Everyone in the world sympathized with the weak. No matter what, she had to act pitiful now, using her beauty to attract all the VIPs to stand on her side. Hence, Lan Ling Nua pretentiously pressed the corner of her eyes as she was about to cry. She's not a lady to be trifled with. Lingling, let's go. Saying that, Lan Ling Nua pulled Xia Lingling's arm and was about to leave. He vividly portrayed the look of helplessness and humiliation on his face. Look how pitiful she was. Bullied by a shrew, all the grievances could only be swallowed into her stomach. Lan Ling Nua's pretentiousness, whether the VIPs took the bait or not, she didn't know. But Xia Lingling was definitely stabbed, not to be trifled with? In my North Continent's territory, there's someone whom I can't trifle with? Lan Ling Nua immediately continued. She dared to poison the Battle King's young lord, and even in the Peach Blossom restaurant, relying on the power of the Peach Blossom 3000 mercenary group, totally disregarding the East Continent and North Continent. She must have a distinguished status. We'd better forget about it. It was obviously words of persuasion. But every single word was to agitate Xia Lingling. The two princesses of the two continents, although they didn't interact often. But Lan Ling Nua more or less understood Xia Lingling's character. Just a few words easily aroused Xia Lingling's competitive spirit. And when the VIPs heard Lan Ling Nua's words, their gazes shifted onto Yiqing Luo. Poison the young prince of the War King's mansion? How could this woman be so bold? There were also quite a number of people who had stayed in the city for a period of time. Naturally, they knew about the Battle King's mansion's search for a red-clothed girl. There were some who recognized Yiqing Luo. He immediately talked about the search in the warlord's mansion. Everyone's gaze towards Yiqing Luo was filled with probing. He seemed to be guessing what identity this seemingly ordinary young girl had to actually dare to touch the young prince of the warlord's mansion. Distinguished status? Xia Lingling's sharp voice rang out. A lowly commoner dares to say that he has an honorable status? Yiqing Luo, whose nose was pointed at, leisurely curled her pink lips as she tilted her head slightly, smiling at Xia Lingling. Lowly commoner? In the eyes of the young princess, we, the common people, are lowly peasants? Xia Lingling only heard the words, we are ordinary people. Immediately he was even more certain that Yiqing Luo was just a little thing without any influence. Without thinking, he sneered angrily, of course. No power or influence, aren't they lowly peasants? You have to bow and scrape when you see me, aren't you lowly peasants? Yiqing Luo's smile grew wider. Chapter 25:18. Xia Lingling was so infuriated that her mind was muddled. Lan Ling Nua wasn't. She and Xia Lingling were on the same boat now. She walked up quickly and grabbed Xia Lingling's wrist, speaking in a low voice. Ling Ling. Forget it, you're not her match. Not only were the VIPs from various continents around them, there were also the commoners of North Tide Continent. Xia Lingling belittled the commoners in front of them. And kept on calling them lowly commoners. Wasn't she trying to incite the anger of the commoners? The both of them represented the royal families of both continents. Unlike that slut who had no fear. The current situation. It was extremely disadvantageous to them. Anyway, the third day of the birthday banquet. They had plenty of chances to teach that slut a lesson. Lan Ling Nua took a look at the VIP's gazes, which all fell onto them. She adjusted her expression and gently patted Xia Lingling's hand. All right, Ling Ling, don't be calculative with those small powerhouses. They're all people who don't know the rules. Don't get yourself into a mess. Xia Lingling pursed her lips tightly. Her face was filled with anger as she stared furiously at Yiqing Luo. But she put on a look as though she had listened to Lan Ling Nua's persuasion. Just at this moment, a hurried voice was heard from the Qingyue sect's manor. Today is Qingyue sect's sovereign's birthday banquet. No matter what enmity we have, please treat each other respectfully on account of sovereign's face. Following that, a plump man dressed in a black brocade robe walked out in quick steps. The middle-aged man wiped the sweat off his forehead and saw the two young ladies blocking the entrance as he hurriedly put on a smile. Isn't this the East Wave Region Lord and Little Region Lord? You must have waited for a long time, please come in. The middle-aged man smiled like a Maitreya Buddha. Apparently, Qingyue sect had heard about what happened outside the manor. They specially sent someone over to mediate. Looking at the middle-aged man's dressing, he should be at least a steward of Qingyue sect. As expected, Xia Lingling pouted and complained, Stewardine, I arrived a long time ago. If I hadn't bumped into this lowly commoner, I would have come to congratulate Uncle Sect Leader on his birthday. Little ancestor, don't get angry and harm your body. Everyone here is a guest. Butler Een smiled as he conveyed Xia Lingling's message. He then said, "The sect leader was still thinking about the two princesses just now. I'll bring the two princesses to see the sect leader." Anyone with a discerning eye could tell. Housekeeper Yin's words were just polite words to resolve the matter. However, Xia Lingling couldn't tell. After all, he was still young and some of his tricks were learned in the palace. But when it came to the human heart and irony, her attainments were still too shallow. On the contrary, she felt that housekeeper Yin had treated her with such importance, and every word he had said was to please her. It was enough to prove how favored she was in the Northern Wave continent. Even Uncle Sect Master on his birthday was still thinking about her. Xia Lingling gleefully threw a provocative look towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. At this moment Lan Ling Nua was also extremely pleased. He was even more certain that the East Wave continent was now so powerful that the other continents had to take a detour around it. It seemed that it wouldn't take long. The East Wave continent would be able to rule the entire Nirvana realm. After that, she would become the one and only region lord in the Nirvana realm. She proudly raised her pretty little face and put on a noble look as she looked at Housekeeper Yin. "Then lead the way." Housekeeper Yin's expression changed slightly. After all, he was used to playing Tai Chi, so he didn't want to haggle with a young lady. Chapter 25-19. Under everyone's gaze, Xia Lingling and Lan Ling Nua proudly walked through the entrance of the Joy Clan Manor. The steward of the Qinghua faction personally welcomed them. Even the representatives of the sects from the other continents would not receive such an honor. This time they had gained a lot of face. The two of them were secretly delighted. But they didn't know that the guests' impression of the two of them was already terrible to the extreme. There were also some large forces that were suspicious of the royal families of the eastern and northern continents. The two princesses were no longer waiting at the door, and the other guests could finally enter the Joy Clan Manor. Yi Qing Luo saw that the farce had ended and didn't intend to investigate further. Instead, he returned to the carriage. Xiao Jin handed over their invitations. When the gatekeeper saw the invitation that Xiao Jin handed over, the expression on his face suddenly changed. His eyes were filled with shock, and then he looked at the ordinary carriage with a trace of respect. Xiao Jin frowned slightly and looked coldly at the gatekeeper. Only then did the gatekeeper react and hurriedly stood up. "Please come in, please come in." The carriage slowly entered the Joy Clan Manor. The guests waiting around were all shrewd people. Naturally, he had seen the gatekeeper's reaction just now. Someone asked curiously, "Who is the person in the carriage?" The gatekeeper must have seen the name on the invitation, which was why he showed such a terrified expression. The gatekeeper's expression changed. He said solemnly, "Everyone, please don't ask too much. That man likes silence." After the carriage entered the Joyful Heart sect, a manservant came forward to stop the carriage for them. Yi Qing Luo had just alighted from the carriage when she heard Lan Ling Nua's sweet laughter. Yi Qing Luo looked over. Indeed, not far ahead, Lan Ling Nua and Xia Lingling were surrounded by a group of young ladies. It was unknown what they were talking about, but they would occasionally laugh. Butler Yin stood at the side respectfully. But Yi Qing Luo could tell. There was displeasure in Butler Yin's eyes. Yi Qing Luo glanced lightly at the two who were still teasing the other young ladies, squinted her charming eyes and sneered coldly. Lan Ling Nua and Xia Lingling didn't look like fools. Why couldn't he think straight at such a crucial moment? After all, this was the Qinyu sect. It was the birthday of the sect master of the Qinyu sect. He had the busy butler run to the door to welcome the two of them. He wanted to mediate between the two of them and avoid unnecessary disputes. On the other hand, Xia Lingling and Lan Ling Nua wanted to show off their status in the eyes of the sect master of the Qinyu sect. Regardless of whether what Steward Yin had said about the sect leader thinking about the two princesses was true or not, these words came out. They were two juniors who had come to offer their blessings. No matter what, the sect master should be the most important. No matter what it was, he would have to wait until he met the sect master first. However, the two of them deliberately walked very slowly, and along the way they even greeted people with all sorts of haughty noises. What's more, they gathered together with the rich young ladies and flaunted their nobility. He really didn't know whether to laugh at their stupidity or not. Or were the two of them so thoroughly brainwashed by their uncle monarch that their brains were damaged? Did he really think that the identity of the royal family was unique and honorable in the world? What are you laughing at? Yen Shaoyi came down from the carriage and asked casually. Yi Qing Luo shot a glance towards Lan Ling Nua's direction. Yen Shaoyi looked over and her beautiful eyes widened. Tisk, these two people's brains must have been kicked by a donkey? The truth had proven that Lan Ling Nua and Xia Lingling's brains had indeed been kicked by a donkey. The two of them looked over at the same time. The people over there naturally sensed something. Chapter 25-20. Lowly commoner, how did you manage to sneak in? Xia Lingling frowned and glanced at Xiao Jin with a face full of disdain. Do you know what this place is? A coachman dares to stand in the Qinghua sect? This is Uncle Patriarch's birthday celebration. Not any Tom, Dick or Harry can just come in. The other 5 to 6 young misses saw Xia Lingling's attitude and asked curiously, who is that? Which family's Missy is she from? Missy? Xia Lingling snorted coldly and sneered, just a small powerhouse's waste, dragging her entire family to Qinghua sect, trying to build a relationship with Uncle Patriarch. Why don't you take a look at your own status first? Yiqing Luo didn't want to bother with these two silly women. She pulled Yan Xiaoyi and followed behind the carriage. But in Xia Lingling's eyes, Yiqing Luo had silently acknowledged her lowly status. Feeling ashamed and embarrassed, he wanted to escape at the last minute. Since you're so thick-skinned to get an invitation, why are you afraid of others talking about it? Xia Lingling naturally wouldn't let go of this chance to humiliate Yiqing Luo and the rest. She pulled Lan Ling Nua and walked towards Yiqing Luo's direction with the other young misses. Today was the birthday celebration and Qinghua sect was a place of freedom. The guests came and went as they chatted and socialized. Yiqing Luo and the rest were not far from the entrance of the Qinghua sect. Just a little noise and it attracted a lot of attention. With Uncle Patriarch's support, Xia Lingling naturally wasn't afraid of the gazes from the surrounding people. Earlier at the entrance, they blocked the entrance and delayed the other guests' time, which was why they were blamed by the other guests. Now she wanted to take revenge. She wanted to make that slut cry in shame and leave this place. Xia Lingling raised her voice and pointed at Yiqing Luo. Which continent are you from? Making this kind of carriage and trying to build a relationship with Qinghua sect? A bunch of useless waste? You're a disgrace to your continent. In order to build a good relationship with the two continents' princess, the young misses naturally stood on their side. Especially when they saw the extremely ordinary carriage behind Yiqing Luo. Their hearts were filled with contempt towards Yiqing Luo and the rest. Trash from a small faction, don't embarrass yourself here. That's right. Do you really think that you can befriend the sect master just because you attended the sect master's birthday banquet? With your status, it's already a luxury to be able to see the sect master. The way I see it, these two girls are shameless enough to come to the joyful Qin sect's birthday banquet. They're probably trying to hook up with some noble young master and become his bed warmer. Look at how they're dressed. They're obviously vixens who are here to seduce men. The words of the young lady successfully pleased Lan Ling Nua and Xia Lingling. Yiqing Luo and Yan Xiaoyi exchanged glances, expressing their innocence. Flowery? If what they were doing was considered fancy, then wouldn't this group of young ladies be so pretty that I can't look at them anymore? Each and every one of them shone with golden light, wishing that they could wear gold and silver to fill themselves up. And he still had the cheek to say that the two of them were fancy pants? His ability to lie through his teeth was also unparalleled. With their unpresentable looks? Just based on their petty-minded appearances? Who else are they trying to seduce? If we're talking about the prettiest today, it would be Princess Donglan and young Princess Beilan. As they spoke, the young lady started to flatter the two princesses again. This flattery. Xia Lingling and Lan Ling Nua expressed their satisfaction. Looking at Yiqing Luo and the rest, they couldn't say a word after being criticized by the young ladies. Chapter 25-21. Lan Ling Nua put on a high and mighty look as she held Xia Lingling's arm and walked over arrogantly. She sneered scornfully, as a person you need to know your own limits, don't dream about things that you can't get. Saying that, she looked at Housekeeper Yin. Housekeeper Yin, these people have bad intentions and their status is lowly, to let them attend the sovereign's birthday banquet, it's a disgrace to Qinghua sect's reputation, it's better to chase them out. Housekeeper Yin's face had already turned steely green. He hadn't had the chance to speak. Lan Ling Nua had already walked in front of Yiqing Luo as her red lips curled up complacently, but she put on a gentle and generous look. Miss Yi, it's not that I'm not willing to let you attend the sovereign's birthday banquet, but your status is simply too lowly, and it's a disgrace to Qinghua sect's prestige. In order to protect your continent's reputation, and to protect your remaining dignity, leave Qinghua sect. His words were full of emotion and voice. as though the starting point of this decision was really for Yiqing Luo's own good. The young ladies behind her nodded one after another as their faces were filled with disdain and ridicule. Yiqing Luo let them speak as she smiled. The expression on her face was as calm as still water. Her quiet and seductive eyes stared straight at Lanling Nuo. Lanling Nuo's smile froze at the corner of her mouth. Lanling Nuo's body stiffened as her voice trembled. What are you looking at? Don't tell me what I said is wrong. Of course Sister Nuo is right. Xia Lingling raised her head as she said proudly, Sister Nuo's suggestion is to help you retain your reputation, don't be ungrateful. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she gave a low laugh. Her pair of charming eyes, because of her raised arc, added some enchantment. Lanling Nuo was jolted back a few steps. Yiqing Luo smiled slightly, are you done? Her voice was cold, without any extra emotions. Lanling Nuo's nervous heart tightened. Yuji wasn't around if this slut really made a move on her. She would definitely be at a disadvantage. No matter what, she must make them scram out of Qinyu sect. Lanling Nuo retreated a few steps and shrunk closer to Stewardine. Stewardine, take a look. Such a barbaric woman. If she really attends the sect leader's birthday banquet and offends the sect leader, what should we do? Stewardine dodged Lanling Nuo's outstretched hand without a trace. He was neither servile nor overbearing, but his expression was gloomy. East Wave Region Lord, everyone who comes is a guest. The Qinyu sect will not look down on anyone because of their identity. Lanling Nuo's expression stiffened. Stewardine. Xia Lingling instantly pulled a long face when she heard this. Are you saying that I look down on them? Butler Een bowed slightly but didn't say anything. In other words, it was a tacit agreement. Xia Lingling's expression became extremely ugly. So what if I look down on them? What right does a lowly piece of trash have to sit in the same place and breathe the same air as me? I find it disgusting. Lanling Nuo also said gently, Housekeeper Een, don't hurt our friendship because of these lowly people. We are doing this in consideration for the Qinyu sect. If these people really attend the sect leader's birthday banquet, it will really affect the mood of the guests. Lanling Nuo's tone became heavier as she spoke. She was threatening Housekeeper Een. They were the two most pampered young region lords in the two continents. Even the Qinyu sect had to give them face and treat them as VIPs. No matter what, they wouldn't offend the two region lords just because of these sluts, right? Housekeeper Een had yet to reply. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.